moment in which Sephiroth died, it connects him directly to Cloud.
This is the first personification of Sephiroth realizing I can save everyone. The reunion, the merging of world, twisted, like sad version of saving everyone.
The idea of the worlds merging is based around the fact that in that moment is Cloud's peak levels of despair.
Jenova complete. I want to see her come to life again, man. She's complete.
Oh, that has completely changed what the wing represents.
But it's definitely like the moment where Sephiroth came back from Advent Children, his consciousness or something. Like, what if you appears inside the wing?
Yeah, with the wing coming out.
And kind of opens up and like, as if he's just continuing talking to Cloud. This happens after Advent Children, Sephiroth. So then this is the final end of Sephiroth. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It finishes Sephiroth off forever. Hello, everyone. So excited today to be discussing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Sephiroth theories, which maybe my Sephiroth theories don't sound so crazy. Interesting. After this Ever Crisis, is fascinating. I'm here with Sleepeasy. Loves filmmaking just like myself. He's like the guy who makes these like magnum opus 5-hour long theory videos on YouTube, which are pretty much like encyclopedias of lore as much as a theory video. So say hi to everybody. Sleepeasy, introduce yourself, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. I'm Sleepeasy. As Phil sort of already queued up, is I make very, very long theory videos on Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes.
I've pretty much gone like 3 years talking about the game. I want to say enough about the compilation and all of the extended material. And haven't talked a lot about Rebirth, but that's kind of what we're here to sort of rectify with this conversation, especially because we have new developments, not only with like the release of Rebirth, but also Ever Crisis. And I think as we were kind of talking in the pre-game of this stream, Phil and I kind of have landed in similar circles, which we've always pretty much been aligned on conversation, and just kind of even in the sense of like bouncing back and forth. It's like, oh, that would just be sick. That would just be sick. Like
totally.
Vessel of Rebirth, I think, is a good starting point for everyone, even though it's the longest. And then some of maybe the video right before Rebirth came out, which I think is the last page, which is Crisis Core coded a little bit. Both of them are. We're going to be talking about Crisis
that's the way to do it. And also like his videos, why I like them the most are just because it's really just a celebration of FF7. Let's talk about Sephiroth. I think it's a good place to start, and then we'll branch off from there. I had a theory that I spoke about to Baby Seal, and I spoke about with Aaliyah before when I first finished the game. Was really excited about it. This is what people have been tagging me on Twitter now, because it's like, oh dang, I'm so sorry, dude. You might actually have been right. Because in Ever Crisis, we got a little bit of information, but I essentially said that it seemed to be hinting to me that Sephiroth, when he was a kid, really wanted to save everyone. He had almost like this childish idea. What happened with Rosen in Ever Crisis, he kind of has the war twists his mentality on that, and kind of feel like, okay, I can't save everyone. The harsh realities of war and life, you know? And I feel like he kind of matures in that way. But then I said, what if what Sephiroth is doing with all the worlds, the reunion, the merging of worlds, the merging of everything, the merging of all Jenova cells, is actually a twisted, like sad version of saving everyone, almost like Ultimecia from Final Fantasy VIII, combining everything so they can just have an absolute eternity. No one will die. It'll be like almost like Seymour in Final Fantasy X, like a twisted version of like everybody's happy now. Nobody has to worry about anything, but it's still saving everyone in this villainous way, you know. And I love it. I think it's really good. So why don't we start there? Love to hear your thoughts on it as well, because you had similar thoughts, Sleepeasy, right? And then we'll go from there.
We'll jump off and we'll see where we go. But I think it was so funny because that was the same in my mind as I was playing Final Fantasy VII. I even said this on the Max podcast, but I was like, this is just time compression.
Yes.
This is everything exists in this weird way. I think so your theory about it was very similarly building in my mind from a different perspective, because I was looking at it from like the Crisis Core lore of like Loveless, which was like all of Rebirth for me,
Yeah.
and I've stated on it,
Uh-huh.
but I was like, why is this game just like completely catering to this Loveless narrative? But to kind of get to that point where you were, I was really interested with the way that they were starting to depict Sephiroth, and not that he was becoming a redeemable villain, which I kind of want to touch on a little bit, because I got some flack for that, but I think that people are kind of missing the point on that. But it was more the fact that Sephiroth's we don't have a clear vision of who Sephiroth is now and why he's doing everything. Where we got some of the bigger explanations about, look, like I want all the worlds to merge. I want to like create eternity,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. It was more just like why is he doing this?
Yes.
Why is that happening? And in some prior videos, I had been looking at Sephiroth sort of developing some aspect of humanity. They were trying to humanize aspects of him, with the idea of like creating a world that is like based off of his dream, which Ever Crisis completely just confirmed in like the coolest way possible.
Oh yeah.
But
Absolutely.
which we are definitely going to talk about. But the ending thought of it is that I was starting to get, along with this idea. It's like, oh, he's just trying to create. He says there's a line that he says with Glenn at the end where he's like, "We're gonna realize our promised land. Like this is gonna be the promised land that like we want to create."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, so this is just Sephiroth's really twisted, horrible world that he is just creating. And but the one that he thinks is for the best. He's not doing it out of ill intent. He thinks he's doing everyone a favor.
Mm-hmm. That's
But
it.
the
That's
thing,
what I'm saying, man. It sounds like Seymour almost, doesn't it? Final Fantasy X. Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
But in the thing that, so I posted this because I was like, and there's stuff like about him trying to save Cloud, which is very like Rosen
Mm-hmm.
connected to,
Yeah.
with like choose the people that you want to protect.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about filmmaking because I know that you just watched it, but we can
Oh yeah.
compare the Edge of Creation scene even to like the um like Sephiroth with Rosen. There's like shot similarities there, not even with him like at the end of Edge of Creation at the end, but the thing that was people weren't getting, they were like, oh, you just want like us to be sympathetic, or like Sephiroth's getting like a redemption arc or something like that. And I was like, not like, or misunderstanding what it means that Sephiroth cares about saving everybody,
Yes.
or how he is compassionate to Cloud.
I
And
couldn't
then like
believe
I
that
don't
everyone did the same thing to me. I was like, yeah, I literally said the same thing I just said to you to Baby Seal, and everybody's like, God, everyone with this Sephiroth redemption arc is so stupid. And I'm like, this is the problem when the fandom just has like a
did
couple
you play the
buzzwords.
same game?
Yeah, yeah,
Did you
yeah.
play the same game?
But they literally heard my theory
It's
and are still like, ah, yeah, that's the Sephiroth redemption camp. And I'm like, dude, have a free thought for yourself. Everybody just wants to like paste these kind of like buzzwords on everybody's thoughts, and it's just so frustrating. So I'm like, what? You
it
didn't even
is.
listen to what I said. That's literally the opposite of what it's like. The more evil Sephiroth story, not redemption. So yeah,
Right.
it's crazy.
I
But
think I think that that was the part that was so clear to me
mm-hmm.
by the end of Rebirth, because of there's I think two scenes specifically that are like, oh, like, so this is what Sephiroth is like now. Like
Yeah,
he's just, at first in Remake we were like, there's like little makings of, yeah, I can see maybe the direction of a redemption arc because of what he's saying to Cloud about like he doesn't want him to vanish. But we, with like prior lore and stuff like that,
yep,
we understand the importance that Cloud has. But then in Rebirth, it takes one step further, and is when he's talking about the merging of worlds, and he's talking about the rapture and the
yeah,
voices of the planet and like how good it sounds to him, and that the his reaction is the polar opposite of Cloud's, which is that he hears the
screaming.
agony
Mm-hmm.
of, yeah, of all of these worlds and like
Mm-hmm.
these souls like just melding together, or whatever is happening, some like, next level like bigger shit. that I'm sure will be more elaborated on in
Oh
like the
yeah.
future. But it's horrifying. But the fact is that Sephiroth is like you're out of touch with what I'm in touch with, which is the exact opposite view of what we have of him, which is that he's so disconnected from any ounce of humanity to recognize that what he's doing is this horrible thing.
Yes.
That and that's what makes him now even more compelling.
Totally,
Is
totally.
that
Yeah, it's like it
and
goes from just this kind of like very simplified, like I will become a god. It's like, well, why? You know what I mean? So now it's not just that. It's like, no, I am a lofty figure who's not just like saying empty statements like that. It's like, no, this is why I want to become like a sort of like lofty figure, heavenly figure, so I can do X. You know, so I can save everyone, so I can rule over eternity. And it's like this sad, twisted, perversion of his dream that he had when he was a kid. That's cool
yes,
stuff. Like
I
that's
think
a compelling character.
it's
Yeah, motivation.
it's the clicking of so there's that bigger scene and then you start thinking about everything that Sephiroth has ever said to Cloud, and
Yep.
that there's this developer note in Edge of Creation where there's a line of Nojima's, I think it might have even been Kitase, but he's saying is that why does Sephiroth say that to Cloud, that he doesn't want him to end and that he wants to join, that he wants Cloud to join him,
Yes.
and then he essentially just says is that there's some sort of compassion, or like Sephiroth feels a deep sense of connection with Cloud
Yeah.
because of their history. And now because of the way that Rebirth frames Sephiroth, you're looking at all, because there were a ton of comments on my Twitter post being like what is all of that Sephiroth wants to give Cloud is suffering. Like that's his form of compassion.
Yeah.
His form of compassion is despair for Cloud.
Yes.
So like when he's
Also
he's
consider this.
relishing, yes,
To your point, it's like, why does Sephiroth have an obsession with Cloud? My answer has always been because Cloud killed him. He has earned an
yes,
immense respect. Like, look at Sephiroth, even in Ever Crisis, completely untouchable, like divine figure. He just murders anything, whether it's a beast, a human. No combatant has ever touched Sephiroth's entire life. Just deletes them. Genesis and Jill like can easily, 2-on-1. So the fact that Cloud kills him in the original game, by the way, spoilers for the original game. I did say spoilers in the title at least. Yeah, spoilers for the original game. So he kills Sephiroth in Nibelheim, throws him in. What did Sephiroth's suffering that Cloud gave him do? It allowed him to be reborn into like a higher consciousness, a higher being, right? So maybe it's as simple as that. Like he's trying to get Cloud to his level, right? Cloud leveled him up, man.
there is that.
Cloud leveled him up, you know. So
Definitely. And I do think that that was the other thing is that there's also developer commentary on the moment in which Sephiroth died is a moment where Sephiroth thinks about, like that's a point in his history that connects him directly to Cloud. So you're not wrong. I think that that moment is pivotal to the relationship, and even in Remake they touch on that at the beginning when they're talking to each other.
Yep.
When Cloud says like I killed you with my own hands, and he said, and that's a cherished moment between Sephiroth and Cloud mentioned by Sephiroth. So there is like this, and I love that approach is that it's I think one of the things that Advent Children was really very very open about was their depiction of Sephiroth, where they made him feel alien, like they don't have him blink at all because they want him to seem like unsettling and his skin is pale like a ghost.
They nailed that.
So he's more alien than human in Advent Children. But in this, it feels like they were like, okay, well, that's the Sephiroth that everybody expects, I think, going into, especially from OG, because he feels so much other, and like all of his dialogue is very disconnected. They kept all of that, but they really are snaking it back into this is rooted in what ultimately Sephiroth deeply wants and desires, which makes him as a villain more compelling. I'm not sitting here being like, "Oh, Sephiroth, like,
no,
I really hope that he makes it out of this okay." It's more just like this is so fucked up. This is
Yeah, no,
more
it's
fucked up
so
than it
interesting.
was
He's
before.
so much better, man. He's so much better now, and that's why I've said it about Rebirth the entire time. Again, if you haven't heard my thoughts on Rebirth yet, guys, like I think it's an improvement over the original. Just saying it straight up. I played the original in tandem with Rebirth every chapter. Literally, okay, let's go to the chapter with Aerith. Let's do this. Let's do that. Oh, the forest scene. This is why I was able to call out like the dream sequence. Like, yes, it's an expanded, awesome, like sort of explored version of it. We already had this. It's a dream world in the forest in the original, where Aerith talks to Cloud and says, "Let me handle Sephiroth," and then Sephiroth drops down into that dream world. The same thing happens on the date, the dream date that Aerith has with Cloud. Like Sephiroth drops out. This is where you've been hiding. It's the same ideas expanded, you know. So I was able to kind of like pick that stuff up. Obviously, the new stuff is amazing. It's leading to something awesome and new, but it's the same story, you know, as a basis, and it's a revision towards that new stuff. It's not just like, oh yeah, this is a new timeline, and it's the same reason I was able to say this is like Final Fantasy X, man. They literally say dream world. Aerith says, "Call it my dream."
Yes.
It's such a simple comparison by the same writer, by the way, Nojima. Final Fantasy X, like, you know, my brain instantly goes there, and I guess my whole theme of everything is, yes, we're gonna sit here, we're gonna talk crazy theories, we're gonna have a blast. It's super fun. But like, always go to the simplest answer first with stuff like this. Like, what is the scene
Yes.
saying? What is the character literally saying in
Right.
the scene? As opposed
None
to,
of
oh
the
yeah,
stuff.
timelines and multiverse and stuff like that. They just told you. They just told you in the scene. You
Right.
know? So yeah, that's my thought on it.
I'm completely aligned with that because I think one of the things that and I think that you and I understand this pretty clearly just because we come from a filmmaker background is that
Yes.
the story and the emotional storytelling
Mm,
is the lead for whatever is happening outside of that. So the
totally.
world is simply just a reflection and like of the characters, but the thing that makes it so fun for me, because some people I can understand this too, where it's like the Star Wars effect of like books upon like expanding out into like,
Oh yeah.
tons of different spin-offs and ton of different other things. I totally get that. But with Remake and Rebirth, it really feels like a refining of a dialogue that has already existed, and that passion feels very palpable in every scene that you're seeing because you can't have scenes like the Aerith's goodbye work
Yes.
without having developed some kind of emotional resonance with the player about this character and about their journey. And I think that regardless of how you feel about maybe the entire package of the trilogy and what ultimately that's going to happen is that the game has connected with people. I think
Oh yeah.
Rebirth especially is connecting with people not only just through like gameplay but also in its presentation. It's all connected back to the OG as the heart of the story and that nostalgic feeling, and also just refining that language. I don't, and I agree with you. I've even said this too, but like I think that this is going in the direction that this will overshadow. This is going to be the definitive way of playing I think that they both exist and
Yeah.
should be played. I think
Same.
I
Yeah.
want to play Rebirth more now. Like
Yes.
I'm still thinking
Yes.
not only on a level of like lore of like there's still so much to say and so much to explore and like weeds to go through, but like I want to become like a Kate Sith main still. Like
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
I
No,
want to
it's
break
so fun,
down
and
all of
I
the mechanics and stuff.
something I said
It's
is like
so
it's
rich in
literally
content.
it's more Final Fantasy VII than the original is what I keep saying, right? Like
Yeah.
it is obviously like it is and it isn't, right? But from my perspective, it is. It's leaning into everything. Like the simplest example is explaining the Black Materia, the Gi tribe, all that stuff. It's like and when you play the original, it's just like, wait, why does this like world destroying thing exist? No comment. Like, we don't know. It's just there. Oh, okay. So now it's like a whole super interesting thing that not only explains the Gi tribe, explains the Black Materia, but makes Sephiroth and Jenova make so much more sense. And like there's a trackable like hard magic system that you can be like, oh, this is why Sephiroth doesn't diffuse into the life stream when he dies in Nibelheim. Literally, like it's on paper now. You can explain why, not just like he's really strong. You know what I mean? So you can say that, but now there's reasons for everything that connects back, and it's just super super fulfilling to me as a lore enthusiast of the original. And now it's like, oh, that makes more sense. And now, like I said, I was playing the original next to it. Sephiroth himself, man, he's so auxiliary in the game, man. He doesn't even say anything after he's reborn. He never speaks again. After he finally fully breaks Cloud, and he's just like up there doing his thing. And that's, we can improve that for sure, for sure. And I think the story being so good and having such a long shelf life, the original, is just because the writing was so good, the story makers were so good, the character design was there. Everybody was so highly motivated because it's a new technology. They can do cutscenes, they can do this, but like that doesn't untether it from the extremely limited technology. To finally see a film scene again. If we're going to talk about like in the art world or show it to artists in that world, they're going to look at the original and be like, "What is this? What? Like, turn that off." Anyway, let's watch the scene. Let's watch the performance.
Right.
Let's watch the acting. And it's happened to me several times already as I've tried to show it to artists. It's like, okay, turn that off immediately. Like, what is this? Like, so it's just how it is. It's just, the honest, us who grew up with it, of course it holds a charming, magical place forever, but that's just the way it is. So the new one is,
I think it's also like black and white filmmaking, where I think that there is definitely like still there the thing about the OG that still resonates very clearly with me is that sometimes older video games feel very reflective pool like, right? Where your brain has to fill in whether it's a graphical gap or a story gap or things like that. I really appreciate Final Fantasy VII for that part. Is that it really doesn't want to tell you any more than what it's saying, and the art is resonating enough with people to feel like they can kind of accept the gaps in story or accept the logic is not going to be there for that. I agree with you, though. I don't think in terms of like, as an example, in terms of modern filmmaking and like sort of standards going along with Rebirth and even Ever Crisis as an example, is that there is a shot in the Rosen flashback with Sephiroth trying to convince Rosen to come with them, where Sephiroth raises his sword to strike Rosen down, and that's the same shot that they used in Edge of Creation. But there's conflict there with the way that Sephiroth is emoting with Rosen, because he's building resolve for the first time. Whereas Sephiroth at Edge of Creation has already made his resolve. He's already following through. So
totally, man.
Seeing the separation there, and all that is being picked up on is two scenes that are identical in shot and just one difference, meaning the facial reaction of the character. And you're just like, that is where, and this is also why, like, even with Ever Crisis has already done so more work for like compilation stuff, just because it's actually resonating with people. I think as much as people are like, oh, mobile game, like they're hiding like the best stuff on the side. Dude, just watch the cutscene. It's awesome. You're gonna enjoy it better.
Yeah, totally.
Probably that way than just like, the point is that it's actually, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like they're just sliding it in just for the sake of. It feels like this is all actually adding up in a significant way that we would actually want to see it. Like, I wish Crisis Core was fucking treated the same way that Ever Crisis was. Because so much more emotional, like Glenn's struggle too, and like also knowing that like now where Glenn goes, and also that apparently Glenn has some sort of like presence and resonating factor in Sephiroth's life is actually meaningful. And it's like
the first compassion he was ever shown, essentially. Like, damn, man, that's dark stuff. So sad.
And then also him kicking the necklace off at the end too is also just like fucking harsh. And I felt that for Sephiroth. I was like, that fucking sucks.
That was terrible. That was really awful to see, and he just destroys it instantly. But I mean, it's also kind of, relates back to how he feels about his mother, and then finally discovering more later in life and how it affects him and stuff. It's It's just so good, man. It's just so
The
good.
interesting choice there, I guess, is that the necklace comes back through the flow of Mako, meaning like that if Glenn had not interfered there, could things have been different? And was the natural flow of life actually meant to be different for Sephiroth? And I
Right.
think that that's something that is continuing to develop as a conversation with Sephiroth, especially because of how he's introduced in Ever Crisis, with the white feathers kind of showing up
Mm-hmm.
as he arrives, is that there's something that corrupts him that maybe wasn't in the cards for him originally. So maybe
Yep.
that this conversation of destiny will further develop with his character, and especially going into like some of the stuff with Angeal that's coming up, which I'm super
I'm
excited
so
for.
excited, man. Yeah, I
Um,
saw that shot. I got so hyped up, and it's just for the reason you said too.
I was
Just the
like,
way they're
what?
doing Ever Crisis. It's like yes, and it's like I said in the Baby Seal conversation. It's like with my idea with Genesis and everything. So I really want kind of like meaningful Genesis and Geo Sephiroth scenes outside of Crisis Core, which kind of just show like how did they meet? Like what is their friendship? What is their relationship? Kind of before Crisis Core, which is pretty much at the tail end of everything going wrong. So I'd really love to see that and how that affected Sephiroth, and then his eventual loneliness being so, exacerbated by everything that happens. So it's super interesting.
I agree. I'm very much with you on the um this is a big thing for me because I feel like Crisis Core is very much like part two. I do feel like Dirge of Cerberus will kind of start to turn its head more in part three than
You think
people
so?
might
Yeah.
expect. That's my expectation on from what we've seen in part two,
Mm-hmm.
and also the idea of the title of Dirge of Cerberus, because think like you had an amazing sort of depiction of, and I want to talk more about this at some point, but you
Yeah.
had this amazing depiction of like the mother son relationship of like watching that like twisted, oh, like thematically, Phil, like I was like, this would be peak seeing Sephiroth and Jenova's relationship depicted in like her final sort of
Dude.
creation, and him being a part of that. That was like next level. I wanted to gush about that, but that would
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
same line of that
Yeah, yeah,
was
dude. Oh, so
you
excited
can
about
go
it.
for it too if you want to unleash.
Yeah, listen, I had so many
I
thoughts. You're talking about how I talk about Genova Complete and stuff?
yes,
Oh, dude, yeah, I'll touch on it briefly
fantastic.
for people who might have missed that. But so I had this other idea in relation to the Sephiroth wanting to save everyone. So Aaliyah had this amazing thought. This is why I love like kind of we went to our vacuum because she's a new kind of like lore master of FF7. She just finally saw all the OG, all of Rebirth, all of everything, Ever Crisis now, and
Yay.
she's like, we're getting really cool thoughts from. Also, we need more women in the theory conversation. So it was awesome to get perspective. And her thought was like, wait, so the reunion is the merging of worlds, right? And she's like, is there only one life stream? And I was like, yes. I think I can answer yes, because Sephiroth says, they're all part of the planet, one life stream. So, okay, so is there only one Jenova? And I was like, that's a better question. Harder question, rather. Yeah, I'm going to say yes. So she's like, wait, wouldn't Sephiroth want to merge all the worlds too? He said to, kind of complete my mother who's been scattered, people who have Jenova cells in the other worlds, like Zack, etc., like to get Jenova back together. I was like, damn, that's a really good thought. But it spurred me on to think, like, okay, man, I really want to see. I just played the ending of OG, Jenova Complete. It's the last time you face her,
Yes.
and she just shows up and she looks a little bit different. There's some tentacles. You kill her and she doesn't say anything. It's like, okay, so she was completed. That means that her body was back together fully. I want to see her get up and talk, man. You see her like in the vat, like that's her body has been kind of broken up and everything. I want to see her come to life again, man. She's complete. The ancients slept her, and now she's back together. I want to see her get up and talk and walk around and say like, thank you, my son, whatever. It's okay now, because like I said to Baby Seal, man, this idea of in Nibelheim, I think it's like the strongest scene in all the Sephiroth stuff so far. One of them, where you see that weird, twisted vulnerability. Now we'll be together forever, mother. It's okay. It's this like very sad, desperate need to cling to something that he's completely alone, find his new identity. And I think at that point he is also influenced by Jenova in some way. And then I think it'd be super interesting if we have a couple options, right? When she comes back to life, either she embraces him and says like, yes, my son, it's okay. Or what if she doesn't embrace him? All right. What if she says, "You're just another insect. Like I came to this planet and infected everybody. You're just one of the infected. You're nothing to me." And he doesn't take that very well. What if Sephiroth just like goes bananas, maybe destroys her in some way? I don't know. It could be pretty interesting. Because the thing that the developer quote that always sticks with me is, Sephiroth is the strongest. Like he is. There's no one above him. That's why everybody loves Sephiroth. They're all the other FF villains in some form. Sometimes they're controlled by a greater power. They're influenced by a greater power, and it's like Sephiroth takes control of Jenova. Like he's just on top. He's the strongest in the whole universe. So I think it'd be interesting to see that explored. And I had this other idea, which I don't think I said. I was talking to, I think Susie commented on Twitter, and I was responding to her, and I was like, I would really like to see a sort of final trials that Jenova, who's now complete, just like unleashes on the party. Like imagine we get that final kind of revisit to Myrna for Barrett and everybody. It's just Jenova doing all sorts of illusions, messing with everybody, trying to turn them against each other in the final dungeon, which then leads up to you fighting her and destroying her once and for all, right? So I think that could be pretty cool. But anyways, yeah.
There is such an interesting, you're touching on something that I think is where the final sort of mystery that still remains for me in part in the trilogy so far, because something that threw me for a complete loop and this is why I was telling you, I think we have all the pieces to tell the story. I think that people are way too certain about that right now because the language, so it feels like no G. So everything up until I think the Gi introduction, I am like, I get it. I'm with you. Like I studied Crisis Core, I studied this, I studied that. But as soon as the Gi get introduced, it feels like Nojima stuck like a little like prick in the entire story and swirled it all together, which is ironic because the imagery that we've seen over and over again in Rebirth is that spiral into the center. Is it feels like everything is a little upside down as soon as the Gi get introduced, because the language that the compilation uses so heavily is salvation and destruction, and that these two things are separate. That's sort of how they feel in the compilation. But then what Rebirth sort of is suggesting is that both of these things are both the same and separate at the same time, where the Gi's form of salvation is our destruction, and destruction and vice versa. So it's not that there's a choice between salvation and destruction. They're mutual. They're essentially the same thing, and that's where this whole Jenova aspect of the story, I think, is just like being lost on some people, where it feel like you're saying with like the way that she's being depicted with like her separation, maybe like in the one live stream, is that we know from the compilation that Jenova survives through geostigma and is spiritually in the life stream. So I think Joshi Poo is mentioning this briefly, Jenova can exist in the life stream, but she exists in the negative life stream, which is essentially meant to eventually infiltrate the life stream, which is sort of what's seemingly happening in Rebirth.
And now Rebirth explained that the reason is because she can't diffuse, like because she's not from here. She won't go away no matter what. So she's just there in the live stream. Yeah.
Yes. So there is a suffering aspect of that too. But then it's so strange because there's I'm going to try and make sense of this very quickly just to sort of finish the thought. But in Loveless, there is a depiction of the goddess. And the goddess is mentioned to like descend from the sky. All of this imagery is like is depicted in Rebirth, where like the Jessie is floating down in the play. She's floating down from the heaven. She has these wings, and then she's sort of like, that is all a depiction of the way that Crisis Core also tells that story. But in the Temple of the Ancients, we see that the goddess's arrival sort of signified through the meteor. The meteor arriving on the planet. And we also know that there's two different depictions of the goddess in the mural,
Mm-hmm.
where you see like the good version and then the bad version. And then in Queen's Blood, it's the same thing. You have the good version and the bad version. But the way that the game starts to depict these things is that they're actually the same person.
Yeah.
And or following the exact same footsteps as one another, in the sense that maybe Jenova is like emulating the idea of the goddess. But to kind of get back to Sephiroth with this, and this is the entire point of me bringing this up, is that Sephiroth is also giving off goddess vibes. And this
Yeah.
is where this plugs back into your idea.
Ooh.
Is that you were talking about how Jenova and Sephiroth have like this sort of weird, horrible relationship.
Yeah.
With the Jenova complete
That we need to explore.
the original.
We need to explore it.
Yes. Exactly. In the original material for Final Fantasy VII, in the Northern Crater, Sephiroth is not supposed to look like Sephiroth at that point. He actually looks more like Jenova in that scene in the original material. That he's transformed into something other than what he was before. So he's starting to take on this weird, I guess the word that I think that they use like some wording like androgynous, like where you can't really tell. It's like kind of Sephiroth and kind of Jenova. And
Well,
this is where I landed on the same thought as you, where it's like, I think we're getting this Sephiroth. I think by the end of this, like, it's not just going to be safer Sephiroth. It's going to be like this transformed, not Sephiroth the god, but Sephiroth the goddess of the story, which sort of like in my mind feels very conclusive to everything that's sort of been built up.
Totally.
I want to see your idea because it's way more interesting that he's sort of self-manifesting this motherly figure.
Yeah.
And what he's absent of.
Yes.
But in a way, I almost feel like he is becoming this thing for Cloud instead. Is that it's not about what love he is missing. Like, he has already made up his mind that this is the way that the world should be. But it's more like Sephiroth is trying to give that world that he didn't get himself to Cloud. And that's what makes it so fucking weird that he's doing all of this. Is because it feels like this horrible, I know I'm talking for way too long, but just feels like this horrible, interesting, like, depiction of the absent sort of familial figure that Sephiroth has needed.
And that's what I'm saying.
The only reason any of this is happening.
Yeah, and listen, I agree with you. Like I said, I had this revelation with Aaliyah in our theory talk, is like Sephiroth's true body, in my opinion, is Bizarro Sephiroth. That's his real body, man. You see him in the Northern Crater. He doesn't have legs. He's in the crystal. And then Bizarro Sephiroth doesn't have legs, man. I'm telling you, like that's him. When he comes and he's reborn, that's his being right there. So yeah, he eventually evolves again into Safer Sephiroth, into, his final form. But like, that's him, man. I'm telling you. That's him. That's the twisted body that was reborn from all this stuff. Like, him appearing as a person is an illusion of Jenova. I'm telling you.
It's like the two people that are depicted. I always thought that was really interesting imagery.
Yeah, exactly.
Sephiroth,
there's like the guy who's a human size
emerging.
Yeah, he's a human size on his head that you fight in Rebirth. He's like up on the mini head with like the weird arms. And then there's like the full monster body. I'm telling you, man, that's like what has become of him from stealing the knowledge of the ancients and the Black Whispers and everything. That's him now, man. That's my theory anyway. And I think they're gonna express that.
I think you're right. There's something about that's really on the money, because even Safer Sephiroth doesn't have that like lower half of him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's got wings. Yeah.
It's like what he is becoming. I feel like whatever, and I think that this sort of goes along with maybe some part 3 talk, which is that I definitely feel like whatever Safer Sephiroth form, or whatever form we are going to see Sephiroth in the final moments, is going to be the finality, the completed Sephiroth, the fully ideal and realized version of himself.
Yeah,
which is going to be horrifying. I don't think it's going to be Safer Sephiroth in the way that we know him. I think that that's why I liked your Jenova complete idea so much, is because it was like, I think that they got bizarre Sephiroth out of the way, and to your point, like, are using him more as a way of depicting the transformation into whatever it is that he is going to become.
Yeah, I think like that's his true form now, and like they're showing the cost of him stealing the Black Whispers and like commandeering them and like stealing the knowledge of the ancients and being in the live stream and not diffusing properly and stuff, and also being part Jenova. I think they're showing like his true form at this point, which can evolve. But you got to also remember that Sephiroth's true form is really like who we see at the end of OG at the edge of creation now, as they've named it, right? It's like that's him. He's always there. He's an Advent Children as well. Like he's not going away. The idea of Sephiroth that comes back, right? So I think it's really cool. And also, with the father, with the mother-son stuff, it's such an interesting relationship. And while on the one hand, it's super interesting that he creates this like whole fiction in his head that his mother loves him and stuff. If it's not explored at all, like that's such a wasted opportunity. I would love to see that, when she's complete, even if she doesn't speak, if she's just there and he kind of like, strokes her face and stuff and hugs her, mother, now that you're complete, we can, rule over eternity and stuff like he was talking about in Advent Children. That would be so awesome.
It would be the perfect lead into a final boss fight, I think.
That's what I'm saying.
You would just be like, oh.
yeah, exactly. And then this is why I'm torn on the Jenova, like kind of rejecting him or either joining him, one or the other. It'd be super interesting if she like doesn't love him or something, and then he's just like, oh, okay, so I'll just use you as a tool now, and then kind of just like say, I'm going to use you as opposed to that. And I'm completely alone, and that's what like transforms him into Saber Sephiroth, or he like absorbs her power once and for all and like deletes her sort of like identity, or subsumes it, as they say. Could be super interesting. All right, so I don't know, it's just too good not to explore.
Here's where I think you've made an interesting point, and I think that I want to follow through with it a little bit.
Please,
because of so the thing about the Edge of Creation sequence that we just got is that it confirms to me a very true sentiment of something that started in my remake discussion, which is that Sephiroth is even though they don't use it, I guess, is the Ore Sephiroth human person, because of the way that they took the backstory and plugged it directly into that scene. Is that the human part of him exists still somewhere in this sort of in-between world, and is the catalyst of him being there. It's the catalyst of what we're seeing manifest.
Oh, totally. Listen. Oh no, finish first, then I have a lot of thoughts. Yeah, finish up.
I was just gonna say is that this is Sephiroth doing only what Sephiroth desires to do.
Yeah.
I feel like very singularly it is his sort of approach, but on the same aspect of what you're talking about, because in Advent Children, this is like what I love about Rebirth, is it's literally changed the way that I see all of the compilation. That's the other reason why there's no video right now, is because I literally have to reanalyze.
It's legitimized.
Literally talking
everything.
To you now.
It's legitimized everything. Like I said, the end of Remake. Now I just watched it the other day. The end of Remake, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be the best trilogy ever. When you go back, because everything Sephiroth says, every single thing at the Edge of Creation is like, it makes sense now. And we'll talk about it in a second when I show the image. But I'm like, oh my God. And like him, again, he's not just... I was trying to explain to Aaliyah in the OG after it happened how his body reformed. It's insane. It's not in the game, guys. You have to like go to the Ultimanias to figure this stuff out. Not in the game. So don't tell me the original is like, oh, this perfect explanation. It's more... If people want to talk about Kingdom Hearts stuff, the original FF7 is more Kingdom Hearts... kind of like really complex storytelling than anything that happens in Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, he goes into the live stream, and then he steals the knowledge of the ancients, reconstructs his body. After he gets the knowledge of the ancients, Cloud killed him, and this happens. It's impossible to explain to a new player who has no idea what they're talking about. So, anyways, now instead of that just
like
happening,
a crazy person when you
you sound insane. You're saying it. You're like, I should stop talking. I'm gonna leave now. Listen, now instead of him just doing that, we had a hand in it in Remake. We destroyed the Whisper Harbinger, as you talked about for years now. He tricked us into doing it. We killed the Whisper Harbinger. Now he takes him for himself. That's him getting the power, man. That's him getting knowledge of the end. He stole it from Aerith. He stole it from the planet. And that's how he's reborn. We did it. Instead of just, oh yeah, he's in there just doing his thing. We see he's in the live stream with Tifa in the weapon, and he's going around doing his thing. But like, we see it happening. We have a hand in it, as opposed to just like, yeah, go read the lore if you want to know what the heck happened there. It's so good. It's so good. But I have so many thoughts.
It is so good.
Finish your thoughts before I chime in on the theory.
The idea was just, I love everything you said, but the thing that Kadaj says, and so I had this moment with Crisis Core because Crisis Core reunion, because I was saying it's like, oh, like there's like actually quite a bit of Kadaj in the depiction of Sephiroth and the reunion depiction of Crisis Core's Nibelheim sequence. You can see like a lot of his facial expression of with Jenova specifically, is that wanting, that sort of yearning of his mother's sort of like acceptance and kind of like finally like having this moment for himself in however deranged of a way it is depicted. But one of the things that is, this is so good, I'm like so on this right now, is that Kadaj hates thinking of the relationship that Sephiroth has with Jenova.
Yes.
Because he feels like really what all of this is about, which he ends up being correct about, is that really Jenova just wants Sephiroth. Is that Sephiroth is her true son, and Kadaj is sort of a puppet to get to him, and he feels, and the words that he uses is that mother loves him more than she loves me.
And that drives him crazy. Yeah.
What we understand of Sephiroth's depiction of what caring is suffering. So I almost feel like that Sephiroth's sort of understanding of like these emotions is directly paralleling what he understands Jenova's sort of intent is that her, and this also goes back to the idea of the sort of inverted goddess depiction.
This talk is bound to be exciting.
The goddess
Rebel
love
Sephiroth,
is
Lord
also
Philip Seven Sauce.
a hugely important part of the game. Is that inheriting the goddess's love is the way in which like you sort of are, you're the chosen one. You become the chosen one through sort of like that, and that's what Sephiroth has kind of received, is the goddess's love, Jenova's love, which is horrible, painful, despair.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
despair. Yeah. No, it's absolutely miserable. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like everything you just said too. It's like Kadaj is talking about Sephiroth and Jenova's relationship, how Jenova feels about Sephiroth. Do we ever see that?
No.
Zero. Zilch. You see what I'm saying? Like, we need to see that. We need to see that at the end of... Imagine, like, right after he gets to Northern Crater, you get a sweet CG scene. You see Sephiroth kind of setting up her body after the reunion. Like, yes, mother, you're almost going to be complete and everything. You know, we can do this. You're going to wake up. And it's like this twisted, sad hope and everything. And then, you know, maybe Jenova eventually speaks to him in some weird way. Maybe it's even in his mind how she speaks to everybody else. Maybe she gets up and walks around. But it's just... it's too good not to be explored, man. And imagine the character arc for Sephiroth if after everything he did, this twisted love for his mother, to put her back together, to rule with her, to save the planet for her to rule, she like rejects him and says like, yeah, you're just another insect that I'm going to conquer. Imagine what it would do to him. And maybe that's when he becomes, you know, this ultimate self, after he just is like, oh, I'm done.
Think that's what's so interesting about the way that you're depicting their relationship in the Jenova complete form is that I feel like it would just be that. I think that this is such a cool conversation, because like I'm now like having, and I think I said this to maybe Seal at some point, like just off camera, but there's something about like when Sephiroth stabs Barrett, how he just looks to Cloud and is staring at him with this big smile on his face, is that he loves every second of what he's doing. And like the torment of that he's causing, but it's this motherly relationship. But I think that would be why I like that Jenova Sephiroth pairing is that their causing of suffering to themselves to one another, to each other, is like all a part of that fucked up relationship.
Yeah.
I know that I took a huge detour from this thought, but
oh, please keep going.
The Dirge of Cerberus thing that I think is interesting, and it's something that I've talked about I think a long time ago, but I know that Cerberus is not in Final Fantasy VII. It's the only like summon or one of the only summons that's not included in the game.
It's
I
in
know
FF8, not in
of
FF7.
Like
yeah.
But Cerberus is in my mind, sort of a reference to the three friends of Angeal, Genesis, and
Love
Sephiroth.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I were to have one of those, like, I would really like to see this sort of really fucked up thing happen, is sort of a combined version of the three friends that is depicted as Cerberus. I think that awesome. That would be a really interesting thing to see. Just because we were talking about, I think, Genesis and sort of Angeal, like, somehow touching base with Sephiroth.
Yeah, perfect place to put it is they go to the center of the earth, essentially, at the end, right? That's the gates of hell, man. Yes. Put Cerberus there, you know? If we're going with the Greek.
Dude, I would be super down for that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We could do the final secret summon or something, put like Cerberus or Hades. I'd be super down for that. But yeah, oh man, there's so much good stuff that you talked about too. I'm like, oh man, I could jump in on so many things. But
no, I'm sorry. That's the thing about this too is that I think that there's like so many interesting ways of putting this puzzle piece together that because of the job that they've done.
Oh, like, dude, it's so good.
Put Listen, the pieces down perfectly.
I know you agree with me. I said it a couple times already. It's like, I don't know if I've ever seen something, especially in a video game form, like straight up, that and I say this in a positive manner, asks so much of the audience and gives so much information to the audience, where you can watch this Rebirth ending like 10 times and get new stuff every time. Get new information every time. Every single shot is calculated perfectly to be like, okay, let's not reveal too much, but just a little. Let's hint in this direction. Okay, let's give them this. And there's information to be understood in there. And it's incredible filmmaking. Everything is storyboarded to the pixel to be just enough for OG fans to be like, oh my God, this is what's happening. And just enough for new fans to try and piece it together and be like, wait a second. Aerith's not there. She's not, when we see Tifa's perspective, Aerith's gone. Oh no. Cloud's imagining her, right? Just so... But that, again, if you play this in like 50 years or something, you play, like, oh, let's play some retro games. Let's play FF7 Remake trilogy in like 30 years or something, and you go back, you'll be like, I don't know the story at all. That's what you'll be doing. You'll be going and you'll be enjoying it like that. So I think it's genius. And as a piece unto itself is just so smart, man. It's so smart, and I'm very impressed. But yes, let's pull up some images, because stuff that you said got me really excited, and I wanted to share some stuff with the class, so to speak.
For sure.
And we have some stuff.
Let's do it. Show the students. Dude.
Yeah. Let's show the students some stuff. So something that and this relates to Remake, Rebirth, Ever Crisis. So I'm just gonna drop some of this in here. Sephiroth says this right before he's gonna save everybody. He goes ahead and says, you can become a real hero, because he's not a real hero at this point. He's been propped up as a sort of figurehead by Shinra to recruit new soldiers and to be powerful like him. He said, yeah, he's the hero, Sephiroth. So now that he's about to become a real hero, he saves all the soldiers in Ever Crisis. Yeah, this is from Ever Crisis. He goes ahead and saves all the soldiers in a really meaningful way. How you doing? It's okay. It's all good, I think, unless the sound's bad.
Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi.
Aaliyah says hi. So anyway, what was it? Oh yeah. So in Ever Crisis, right before he saves everyone, he's talking to himself, and I find this very significant. He's reassuring himself. Everybody already views him as this indestructible, like, divine force, and Sephiroth to himself is like, it's okay. You can do this. You can become a real hero now. Just stay strong. Like, it's really fascinating to me, this sort of self-talk. So anyway, that's the first thing that happens. Then the next thing is he becomes a hero. He destroys the behemoth. He fights all these monsters off, saves all the Shinra troops, and then there's this like haunting scene where he's being hailed. Everybody's cheering for Sephiroth as he walks, and it's a lonely shot from behind him. No expression. You just see the people cheering. It's just an unexcited walk behind him. And then after that, we get this first flashes of Jenova imagery, which I assume is the first ever. Crazy. The first ever in the timeline,
And
right? Sleep Easy, yeah. No one's
I think
experiencing.
so. I not for any other knowledge. Yes, this is the first time.
Yeah, this is the first time. And then, of course, after that sort of hallucination, we get this shot of Sephiroth at the Edge of Creation, which, if you look, is the same as this shot of Cloud. So we can talk about why, perhaps, in a second. But I think what is most significant is, to me, at the end of Rebirth, or at the end of Remake, he's saying, now when I go back and watch it, it makes sense, right? He's like, you see this, he's looking at the golden, which now we know visual language from Rebirth is the merging of worlds, right? When they merge together or when worlds change, it's that sort of imagery. So he sees it and he says to Cloud, in that case, soon, one day we will become, one day it'll cease to exist. Everything's going to become a part of it, but not I. Yeah. I will not end, right? All things will end and become. So now we know, that's the reunion, man. That's the merging of worlds. That's the final, everything comes together. All the dream worlds will end, as he said. Some last longer, but they all end. Boom. So he wants Cloud to also not dissipate with him. So this is literally, guys, what I was talking about. This is my theory. This is the first personification. This is the genesis of Sephiroth realizing, I can save everyone. It's the first time he gets that flash. After he becomes a hero, he loses that boyish, childish dream when he kills Rosen. What's his name? Rosen?
I think so.
It just escaped me. I don't know.
I think
so. He kills, it's literally right here on the screenshot. Let's see. His name is, Rosen.
Rosen.
So when he kills him, he loses that boyish pride. He said, you have to kill me. You literally murdered all of my people. I'm the only one left. I want to be with them in the live stream in a very spiritual way. He kills him. I want to save everyone. He realizes he can't save everyone. Rosen says to him, you got to choose the people you save, man. That's not how reality works. Kill me. And he does it. He obliges him. So only when he becomes a hero again, he gets this flash of this hope, this twisted hope. Maybe I can save everyone. Does he see this shot, man, of the Edge of Creation for the first time? And what does that mean to me? It's the same as Cloud, man. It's the same as Cloud, who also had Jenova cells. Cloud now exists in between worlds. Cloud is seeing both worlds at the same time, man. He's not a normal person anymore. He's expanded his consciousness. Okay? Cloud is seeing Advent Children Aerith. He's not supposed to be seeing her. Nobody else sees her, right? That's her in the live stream who's talking to him now. So this is the first time that Sephiroth comes to this dream, and it's the first time that he sees more. And I think it slowly is going to flash more and more to him until he becomes when he gets that Jenova flash in Nibelheim in the basement, when he's reading the books, he finally understands everything. Now I'm going to go save the world. Save everyone by killing them. He's completely lost it. So I think it's really cool imagery, and I want to hear your thoughts, Sleep Easy, on how all this relates with Cloud.
I definitely think that you're on the money with the idea of him developing this sort of. So the idea of going, let's just start kind of where you did, which is that this discussion with Rosen is that Sephiroth's fear is that the people are risking their lives to but they're gonna throw it all away just to try and save somebody. And it's this is not the right way of doing this. But what Rosen sort of instills in Sephiroth's mind is you have to make a choice to save the people that matter to you.
There it is,
And for this scene this scene is all complementary to the Edge of Creation, which we've already talked about, but the point of this is that this dialogue is meant to literally be overlaid to the intent of Sephiroth in the scene of the Edge of Creation. So when he says that I will not end, nor will I have you end, is that Sephiroth has made the decision that Cloud is that important person to him.
Yes.
And that for whatever reason, because this is where people were why is he having this human moment? It's not in the same way that saving is a relative term to what Sephiroth is saying. The point of it is that Sephiroth has chosen Cloud to receive that sort of care from him. and that in Sephiroth's mind is that compassion is what creates a true hero, which is exactly how Crisis Core defines a real hero. Is that
Totally.
that level of compassion is humanity, which is what Sephiroth is showing at the edge of creation.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, the worlds are meant to represent the wings in which one is meant to accomplish dreams, which is also humanity. It all feeds back into just the core aspect of what Sephiroth is doing, what Sephiroth is feeling he must do in order to become an actual hero.
Yeah.
But that is, again, just defined by his perspective of what that goodness is.
Right,
like,
exactly. That's where it changes, yeah.
What is compassion? What is the root of that? And I think that's actually where the discussion moving forward is. Because I think that, like, right now in Rebirth, we've kind of seen where we're leaving off, right? Where are we leaving off is that Cloud is in disrepair.
Yeah.
He's super detached in the same way that Sephiroth is. But what we're going to see now is how, because we've seen how people handle Cloud's, essentially his mental illness, is that they are trying to do what, in every compassionate way, approach him. But just because you show somebody compassion doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they need. And that's like, maybe you're feeding into some delusion of, but at the same time, feeding into the delusion might create more of a scenario, but giving him the truth might destroy him. And that's sort of where we're going, I guess. That's what I think is now, what I'm thinking is like the ultimate question is that what is compassion and how do we treat others with compassion? And I guess that also depends on the individual of what does compassion mean to an individual. How does that make sense?
True.
You know?
True.
That's going to be such an interesting conversation, I think, to have, because we are getting into the Cloud psyche part of the game and seeing that sort of healing, and also knowing that at the same time, this is where it becomes interesting to me is that I don't know what part of Sephiroth fits into that discussion of compassion. Is he going to be more of a mirror of like, this is what, there's some interesting imagery too that I think is something that we should talk about at some point in regards to that compassion that Sephiroth is showing. But I really am, I'm curious to see where, because I feel like Sephiroth and Cloud are very synonymous with each other because of their relationship and because of how they're connected. I wonder if Sephiroth ultimately does want some sort of level of like truth to be known, or does he want Cloud to live in the delusion of, you know, what is his version of compassion? I'm interested to hear.
What you're talking about right now reminds me, of course, of the end of Rebirth. Sephiroth says, you'll never see the truth with such clouded eyes," which is a line he said before to him, as he's literally blocking out the reality, like he's in denial that Aerith is dying. He's blocking out the speech he's giving at that time about Aerith dying, which we'll see later, by saying, "Oh, you're in denial." So Sephiroth needs Cloud to feel that suffering. That's why he's like, "I thought you were ready, you know? All right, I tried to give you a little push by killing Aerith," as he says before. "Let me give you a little push. Let me do this for you." Doesn't work. Cloud is still in denial, and he's like, So I'm telling you, Sephiroth is gonna most likely at the Northern Crater. Like I said, there's pretty much two options. I think if they show the Aerith death, which I think they should or they will, it's gonna be Sephiroth fully destroying Cloud.
They're 100% gonna do that.
Yeah. It's got to be him saying, "Oh, wait, you thought you could save someone? I told you in the first scene of the original, you can't save anyone. Look, this is what happened. She died. You didn't realize it." Or it's gonna be in the live stream. Tifa's gonna say like, "Okay, we need to look at this. You need to like see, face it together." Which I think they can do both as well.
I do think that you're right. It's gonna be both, because they've set up the part where it is a mystery right now whether or not Aerith is or isn't a. I honestly think Oh, there's so much to talk about, and and this is what happens when we start talking about the ending. So I'm just gonna stay on point to what you're saying.
Yeah, I love it.
Is yes, yes, I agree that it's sort of both. That it will be used as like a breaking point of Cloud's for Sephiroth, and it will also be the finality of the discussion of Advent Children ultimately in the live stream sequence, because Advent Children Cloud is suffering from the fact that he hasn't been able to let go of Aerith, like what he did in that moment. And I think combining it with the live stream sequence will resolve that feeling, because it will be Cloud and Tifa both like literally burying her, like putting her to rest.
But
like
also
letting her go will be the thematic equivalent of letting go of his, like admitting to himself that yes, like there might have been some responsibility that he had in that, but that he ultimately forgives himself.
Yes, but I think
thus
also
ending that plot.
That works, but I think also it justifies Advent Children more, man. Like, you know, a lot of people say like, why didn't he already forgive himself for Aerith? What's going on in Advent Children? Dude, what's going on in Rebirth right now? He didn't even realize she's dead until like the Northern Crater, at least, maybe later. Like, he would feel even worse, man. He didn't even begin mourning her until the end of Final Fantasy VII. So you see, I don't know, how bad would you feel if not only you couldn't save her, but you like denied that even happened and kept going on living with a happy face in front of Tifa, who's like devastated. It's, oh, dude, it would be absolutely ruining of your sort of forgiveness or anything like that. So I think either way it works, while making Advent Children make sense and also doing this. And I have a crazy theory that I've not even said out loud that I want to tell you, but yeah. Anyways,
you can go for it. This is the time to do it, because
a lot of people have said
doing the same thing.
A lot of people have said like there has to be a payoff. There has to be a payoff. There has to be a payoff, which I completely disagree with as like a sort of like wide sweeping term. There has to be a payoff for the trilogy. Otherwise, the new stuff is useless. I'm like, we're already getting the payoff, man. Like the end of Rebirth paid off the end of Remake, paid off the OG. It paid off FF7 early. It doesn't even make sense in the original. Now it's making sense, you know. But I have a way. I was like, it could make sense in a cool way if they kind of make Advent Children more satisfying after the end of the Remake trilogy. And I had an idea. I was like, what if, you know, a lot of people who want this love this idea of Sephiroth coming from Advent Children back to the beginning of Remake. I was like, what if actually it happens later in the story? How cool would it be if there's a moment near the end of the Remake trilogy where it's definitely like a nod for people who've seen Advent Children, but it's definitely like the moment where Sephiroth like came back from Advent Children, his consciousness or something. Like, what if you see the imagery of, you know, what does Sephiroth do when he leaves Advent Children? I'll never be a memory. Wrap himself up in the wing. What if there's a moment, it's subtle, but it's there, where he all of a sudden appears inside the wing.
Yeah, with the wing coming out.
And kind of opens up and like, as if he's just continuing talking to Cloud. Because I'm like, holy shit, how cool would that be? Because we already established that he's talking to Cloud and Zack and Rufus as he's deceiving him with Jenova power. Like, he's everywhere at once. He literally fights the entire party and Zack and Cloud in separate worlds at the same time as Bizarro Sephiroth. So like, his power is so far-reaching, man. He can exist, and they said this in the developer notes. Like, he exists in multiple worlds at once. That's how powerful he is. How cool would it be if we have this moment where he comes back there? And again, it might not be so like, anyways, I just went 2 years in the future and spoke to you, and you still hadn't woken up from your freaking stupor, Cloud. Goddamn, like, how cool would it be if there's this moment where it's just like, it's understood that happened, and it would make then this happens after Advent Children, Sephiroth. So then this is the final end of Sephiroth. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It finishes Sephiroth off forever. Post Advent Children, there's no like kind of, sort of like time travel stuff in the way it would be like, oh yeah, he did that and then he's changing. No, none of that. He literally just like saw into the future for a second, essentially. Like his consciousness, okay, he appears and fights Cloud for like 2 minutes. Cloud beats him, he comes back. That would be awesome, right? And it's just the live stream sending himself into Kadaj or whatever. Oh man, and then it all makes sense. Everybody gets what they want. It's the end of Sephiroth forever. So I don't know. And then Advent Children still makes perfect sense. And then we watch it and we're like, yes. Oh man, I'm telling you.
I do want to touch base on Advent Children really quickly, because you've definitely given me because I feel like in this conversation, like I haven't watched Advent Children since I saw it in the theater, but like I'm having like
Yeah.
again the problem with Rebirth is that it's like it requires a reanalysis of too much
Everything.
information.
Everything, yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that sucks for somebody like me who knows too much of everything to then have to be like I literally
Yeah.
have to reconstruct like my entire sort of mentality about like what this
Mm-hmm.
game is about. But I do want to preface this by saying that like one of the things that I noticed very quickly about Rebirth sort of depiction, I do agree, by the way, that there is sort of like this omnipotent aspect of Sephiroth being like sort of omnipresent
Yeah.
and all
It's terrifying.
like being everywhere.
Yeah.
There is a really interesting thing that happens in Rebirth and in Advent Children and in Remake. Well, I'm gonna kind of just because it's better illustrated in Rebirth is that the worlds merging moment, and I don't know if this is something that's already obvious to everybody else, so I forgive me if I'm treading like sort of familiar ground, bubble and such, right? So is that the convergence of worlds sort of is in tandem with Cloud's mental state.
Totally.
Is that the idea of the worlds merging is based around the fact that in that moment is Cloud's peak levels of despair. And because that is happening, the worlds are merging. Mm-hmm. That there's some functionality between Aerith's death, the way it makes Cloud feel, and Sephiroth's ability to tap into the worlds merging and take advantage of those things, which is why at the end of Rebirth, Sephiroth is laughing, knowing that it's not over, because he knows that there are other moments ahead of him that where Cloud will be in a mental state where he can take advantage of the worlds merging. The thing about Advent Children is that we know that the Rebirth scene in Advent Children is like a recreation of the Advent Children scene, which is the same thing as the remake scene. So point being is that I was trying to think about how the Advent Children scene is now relevant. Like, it's not about, Advent Children scene explains the Rebirth scene. It's now the Rebirth scene is explaining the Advent Children scene, where we see we're looking at in Advent Children a convergence of worlds. When Sephiroth is fighting Cloud, is that Cloud and Sephiroth are engaging in that fight, and the black strings are coming out of the sky.
Oh yeah, totally.
And it's literally the same scene that we saw in Rebirth. But I was trying to think of why that scene would be happening.
Yeah. He raised his hand up.
Yeah,
the sky opens up. Yeah.
Same
motion, by the way.
And he drops it.
Finish your thought. You just made me realize something huge too. Yeah.
Yeah, is that this is I was trying to think of why it's happening though, because it's like if the convergence of worlds is based off of the emotional state of Cloud, what is happening in Advent Children that is creating that convergence is that Cloud is suffering, but also coming to the realization that he is like, able to overcome these things. So this is what is so important about Cloud is that as happiness grows, so does sadness. So regardless of whether it's good or bad, creates that moment of convergence for Sephiroth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the realization that I'm coming to is that it's convergence of worlds will happen because Sephiroth illustrates it so plainly in Rebirth, saying that the moments of despair are the most powerful of keeping a world alive.
Yeah.
Is that will perpetuate the worlds endlessly, and that's sort of what it seems like he's trying to achieve. And that's also why as soon as Aerith dies, he's like, and so it begins. Like, this is the moment in which all of these other moments are now allowed to happen, because centrally, the future does not happen without Aerith not to say that it's all timelines, but it's such a core memory for everything that happens that it has to happen. And that ultimately is why Advent Children is allowed to happen as a result. So in the grand scheme of things, it only makes sense that Advent Children has happened in the world of and the depiction of Rebirth. I know that this is such a long tangent.
I'm listening. I'm loving it. Yeah.
It's such a crazy thing to think about that I'm just blowing myself away, because I'm just like, this game has just thought of everything, and I'm not
totally
even sure how it's happened.
Well, let me chime in and say
the main point of it is Advent Children. Yes.
Yeah, you made
Absolutely.
me realize when you said, like, at the end of Advent Children, it looks like a convergence of worlds as he's fighting Cloud. It's like, oh yeah, that just played into what I just said. We know that the worlds exist outside of time, right? Like, there's no continuity to the point where in, to put it in a more obvious terms, Zack and Biggs, he literally says, I don't have an internal clock. It's completely gone. So I'm not to say that's what's happening in Advent Children, that Advent Children is one of the worlds. That would be pretty cool, I think. But it would be interesting and work kind of with my theory that, Sephiroth is kind of just like blinking in and out for a second, because we've seen Sephiroth can go to different worlds, man. So the way I see it is that Advent Children is just, either the same world or not. He's just kind of winking into it like he does into Aerith's dream. That could be really cool. But at the same time, made me realize too, man, my idea about his Black Wing just like appearing post Advent Children, the perfect time to do that, the final fight with Sephiroth, is in the original, when Cloud, beats him and then goes, oh no, he's still here. We go inside Cloud, whatever, a different world, a wormhole, and he fights Sephiroth in the Edge of Creation. That's the time to do it, man. What if right when you go there at the end, Sephiroth goes, comes back out of the wing as if it's like Advent Children? Could be cool. Again, not like a hard confirm necessarily, but I think it would make a lot of people be like, oh yeah, this is it. Sephiroth's done forever after this. Could be the final battle.
There's definitely something to. I like the fact that you're just playing more with like the idea of the wing, just because I do think that now that's the tell of some sort of omnipresence of
totally
of Sephiroth to some degree, because the scene in which we first see him grow the Black Wing period is Advent Children, that he sort of manifests that through the memory of the suffering, which is what connects Cloud and Sephiroth. So that is, oh my god, that's so good.
That would be fun.
How is that even? I'm like losing. I'm like partially losing my shit, because I'm thinking to myself, because I always just thought it's like, okay, well, this is a negative memory. So I'm just gonna briefly cover this because I can't stop myself. I'm sorry.
Please.
You've had a madman on the stream talking about Advent Children, but
yes,
the scene in Advent Children Complete is. Cloud tries to hit Sephiroth with a limit break.
Yeah.
And Sephiroth stabs Cloud through essentially the same way that he stabbed him in Nibelheim.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, is this the same pain that you felt before? And he's kind of going through the motions of that memory and like invoking that feeling, which we know is the moment that Sephiroth cherishes and connects them. And then he says, let me remind you, and on that line he grows the wing. So there's something about that moment now that has completely changed what the wing represents to Sephiroth, what Sephiroth means, signifies in that sort of form, how that form is represented in Remake and Rebirth, and then also just subsequently like the black feathers that we see everywhere, the white wing too. I'm just curious as to, because the reason why this is such a fixation of mine right now is because in Crisis Core it's super obvious how the wing is represented as a world function,
right,
and how that is depicted. But now because of Rebirth and the way that they're depicting him in Ever Crisis and all of this discussion that we're having is that they really are again, like we were saying, what I was saying before is that they're really reanalyzing the language and depicting it in a way where they can start inserting emotion into it. So now
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know what the connective tissue there is yet, but there is something to do with that black wing and Cloud and Sephiroth specifically.
Totally.
I always just thought it was it was just a Sephiroth thing, but now there's like direct language that's connecting them. So I wonder how that's going to play into part 3, because they're definitely going to explain that now.
Oh yeah.
Because of what we just discussed with Advent Children. I'm just so curious as to how that works and what that's going to be like.
No, I'm super excited for it. And like I said, I had my idea about Sephiroth getting his own sort of like live stream segment, where as in Cloud, where he goes through a lot of his memories, and I think it'd be a cool place to bring back Genesis, because where do you bring back Genesis? He's kind of a champion of the planet now, according to the compilation, right? And like kind of post Dirge of Cerberus Crisis Core. So like, I think it'd be cool to put him there, and it's like this kind of plea to Sephiroth to, remember his life.
Really quickly, because I'm super interested in this idea, and I have just one question. Where does that segment happen?
I think it has to happen before Sephiroth comes out of the crystal. So before he's like fully reborn.
Exactly where that happens. And this is something that I've been thinking about this entire conversation.
What's that?
This is going to be a Nibelheim flashback for Sephiroth. Is when Sephiroth falls into the Nibelheim reactor.
Oh, that's
we're
perfect.
Going to see this scene, because
because
they've already set this up with Tifa. Is that the depiction of Tifa's core self, and somehow, and this is why I love the way that they depict the live stream sequence, is that it's not her memories we're seeing it through the eyes of Cloud.
Oh yeah,
we're over the shoulder of Cloud. So what Sephiroth probably went through is the exact same thing when he fell into the Nibelheim reactor.
Yeah,
and this is where this Ore Sephiroth that we see at the edge of creation, that core part of himself, shapes this is where we're going to learn why Sephiroth is the way that he is now, and that he's actually made a decision. We will see him like fall in. He will, like in Lifestream Black, resist like diffusing into the live stream, but it's not going to just be because it's going to be partially because of Cloud, but also this idea and the identity of what a real hero means, which will connect everything back in so seamlessly. I think that you're so on the money with that, though, because that will solve because we were talking about this before the stream started, is that will solve the Ever Crisis problem, which is that this is not a part of the main trilogy of games that people will play, and people need to know about it.
Yeah, and think about it, like, this is the definitive version of FF7, like we said, right? It'd be a shame if after all the compilation stuff is finally getting put into the FF7 remake, it's like, all right, now that it's finally complete, you got to go to Ever Crisis to see the full story. It's like, wait, I thought we were completing it right now. So I think it'd be really good if they just have, the Rosen, some sort of scene to the Rosen, his first time being a hero. You can do it in like 1 minute if you had to, even less, right? If you could just use really clever editing and narration. Sephiroth narrating, maybe he's looking back on his memories. It could be done. And I think it'd be really powerful just to kind of complete. And the one developer note that is really promising is they said, like, part 3 is obviously going to be about everybody in Cloud, but like still very much about the villains.
Sephiroth is just
Sephiroth, and I'm like, yes.
Oh my god!
Because he doesn't do anything in the original. He just sits there and does nothing. So like that's very good news.
The whole point is that if you can just, oh my god, there's just too much good shit that you could do. Honest to God, Phil, I think that like, I don't know what it is, but like as far as like what has been discussed about Rebirth, like this is the stuff that actually interests me.
Same, man.
Because it's
yeah, it's
not about like, I think the idea of knowing everything about the compilation is important to sort of like break down sort of, again, that sort of thematic language, but like what we're talking about here is like, this is why that shit matters. Like none of that, like it all feels very at home with exploring Sephiroth, like having like, I would love to see a scene where like he just drops in. You know what I want to see? I want to see Sephiroth Tifa parallels where we see in I can't remember what the area is blanking on me, but when the live stream sequence happens in
Midil?
the OG, Midil, the ground breaks apart and everyone falls in. But Tifa falls in and it's just black. It's just there's nothing around her.
Yep.
And she starts hearing like voices. She hears like rain.
Yeah, it's
like
overwhelming.
The dripping of like rain.
Radio
and
sounds.
It just becomes this overwhelming noise.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that with Sephiroth. I want to see that with Sephiroth because what it will do is it will define his voice in a way that makes him an individual, which is what will make Sephiroth so scary to us.
Yeah.
It's like, this has nothing to do, well, partially will have to do with, but this has nothing to do with like Jenova's influence. This is all it's a part of it in the sense that like obviously she had a part in his development mentally because of his upbringing, because of the fact that he doesn't have a mom.
Yes.
But just to be like, oh, he has a presence in the live stream because he is human, because he is able to like have this human aspect of himself. And it's the human aspect of Sephiroth that is making the decision to do this.
Yeah.
That's the part I'm interested in. That's also what makes the Edge of Creation scene so interesting too.
Yeah, and that's what was so cool. So what was so significant for me about Nibelheim, I was tweaking out, man. When I first played it, you can see my demo reaction. I was losing, and then my first gameplay when you get the end of the Nibelheim, like I was losing my mind. I was crying on stream at the Tifa scene. I was just like losing my mind because this is the stuff that confirms so much for us about how Sephiroth acts, and being one of my favorite characters of all time. It's just so cool. And like my question is, so we finally see him completely just zoop, I'm going to see my mother, when he completely becomes like a machine and starts just slowly moving, stabbing the townspeople, turning to cloud, like this kind of like this weird stuff.
Yeah,
he does not
Terminator
act like that.
Sound effects.
Yes, and he does not act like that in the current Rebirth. He's totally different. So what happens to him in the live stream? And I think that my theory is that in those moments in Nibelheim, Jenova's in control, man. We see the thing happen to him. She's like, oh, good, another subject to control. Then he falls into the live stream and gets a power up. His will is so strong, as we've known. He steals all the knowledge, he steals the whispers, and then he's like, oh no, I'm in control. Right? So all the stuff I talked about with him talking to Jenova could very well happen in the live stream too. I think it'd be cool to see Jenova complete. Personally, I want to see her stand as you see her in the freaking tank. That'd be terrifying. Imagine her like full, complete form. Her voice would, sound like Aaliyah on stream or something. This is like kind of really, really kind of low, relaxing, but in a dangerous way. Relaxing with Jenova, right? It's like, oh, it's seductive. It's, it can make you do anything. I think it'd be really cool. But anyways, I want to see that transition. When does he stop becoming a machine who's just like walking around, no expression, and to the point where he, is just himself now? So there's a lot in there they can play with. Not to mention Genesis, not to mention Jenova complete at the end, not to mention how does he become safer Sephiroth. Like the cool thing and all the opportunities about playing the end of OG is I'm like, oh, there's gonna be like tons of cutscenes in between Bizarro Sephiroth. It's not just gonna be like, anyways, battle's over, he's transformed. We gotta see. So that could very well be I want to see the drama behind why he becomes like that, not just like cool imagery, a nice boss for him, right? And I think they have the opportunity to make the ultimate, the definitive Final Fantasy reason for having the awesome Tetsuya Nomura art in these final boss forms, and to have a dramatic reason behind it. Kind of like Vayne in FF12. You've seen the ending of FF12. Like this awesome final form, and it's like, oh yeah, this actually makes sense. And you see it happen. You see the kind of magic of why he becomes like that, not just like, phase 2, and now I look like this. So I would love to see that in a great scene. But anyways, I could go all night about it. So yeah,
I think awesome. One of the things that is interesting about I really quickly want to address one thing that I think is actually important to mention is that the other thing to consider is that Sephiroth might not be connected in the way. So the thing about the Tifa scene is that she goes in there and then you realize it's like, oh, like we're all a part of one another.
Yes.
Is that the core memories of Cloud are core to who Tifa is from the perspective of Cloud, though. So it's Cloud's memories, and that exist in the live stream presently, like, and are accessible even with Cloud outside of the live stream. He's alive, he's kicking, is that somehow it all exists singularly
Yes.
in the life stream is that Sephiroth would also, upon falling into the life stream, also have to confront all, like, essentially the past, present, and future Sephiroth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They would all be there presently. So it's about is that something that assumes control over him, or does he assume control over that
Oh,
based off
dude.
of who he is?
He just gave me
At
such
that
an image with
moment.
that, right? It's like, imagine he sees, just like Tifa did, his past, humanity, his life, his interactions with his loved ones, his most important moments, whatever you want to say, and then he's just like I reject all of this. Like I reject myself. I reject my humanity. I reject the live stream. I reject the planet. I don't care about any of this. Like, I'm more powerful, and just like destroys it. And that's how he creates, the black whispers, or we're going to say the negative live stream. It'd be such a cool kind of like, oh, he's terrifying, moment to do.
It would be like that sort of like, not to like go back to like that Loveless sort of connection, but it would be
No,
that
please.
sort of like operatic sort of conclusion to the Sephiroth that we sort of are relating to in a humane way, into the Sephiroth that we know that he becomes, which I think would be, I think that that's another thing that is very like present right now in the story too, is that Jenova feels like, even though there is like clearly like parts of her in like the like other worlds, in sort of the way that he's sort of describing, kind of bringing everything together,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like Jenova is almost a function of the planet in a lot of ways, in the way that it's being depicted in her, because like even her the name of Jenova at the end of the game is like right after Aerith dies, is Jenova Life Clinger.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I feel like that paralleling name to what Aerith becomes in sort of Cloud's mind after, there's some really sinister shit going on with the way that like Jenova is being depicted. And also like some of the things that like Aerith says is that like life and death are sort of like two sides of the same coin. We know that Jenova, through like thematic representation, is sort of death incarnate.
Yep.
Is kind of the end of things, is she brings about the end of like the world, with Meteor, and just sort of her depiction. It feels like this cyclical aspect of things, which even Sephiroth mentions in Ever Crisis, is that it's hate breeds hate, and like that's an ongoing like cycle. The cycle that he's talking about is endless misery. That is the spiral that we see represented both in the Cetra like water altar, is like where Aerith is the center and dead, by the way, which is fucking crazy.
Yes.
And I have no idea what that means. And then like Cosmo Canyon has that representation. The Meteor has that representation. It all sort of like has this spiral aspect of it. But what Sephiroth is deciding is to break that cycle, which means that the cycle of the Cetra, the cycle that his mother represents at the same time, and what is essentially, to your point of like what that live stream sequence would be, was his denial of the way that all aspects of reality work.
Yeah.
So he's not only denouncing his mother to a certain degree,
Yep.
but like in the sense that he's also like, I am the son of Jenova. Like, I'm embracing that aspect, but as like she's a tool of mine.
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
same way
totally.
that the live stream will also be a tool.
Yeah, like I said, we need to see that moment where he goes from like, I'm clearly he's in control at Nibelheim. He never moves like that again in any scene. He's like just really weird. I'm actually really curious if he starts calling himself or stops in that scene. I assume he does in Japanese, but like
that's the last time I think that we hear him speak like that.
Yeah, precisely, right? So we got to see what happens, and that would be a perfect example of when he kind of assumes control, which I hope they do kind of show the mechanics of, as opposed to just like, go read the lore materials and listen to us psychopaths talk about it for 3 hours if you to figure it out, because that's what the OG is. That's literally what the OG is. And again, I think that's why the OG has so much staying power, is it's a deep rabbit hole. It's a really fun and awesome and fulfilling rabbit hole to go down and be like, I want to learn about all this. I want to learn about the mechanics, because it's rewarding. There's a lot of different stuff to see and enjoy. So I would like to see it though in this definitive version. Like, you can play the trilogy and and enjoy it. If you want to go deeper, sure, go play the OG, go play everything. But like, this is it.
It's inviting you to, I think, be curious about that extended material, which I think is actually like the way to go. Is that they're not like telling, like they re-released Crisis Core being like, look, you don't have to play it, but like now it's there for you to play because we know after this game you're probably going to be curious about Zack's involvement in the story. Whether or not you think it's like a masterpiece or not, you're going, what Rebirth is skillfully done is make those things matter in a way where like we were just talking about with like, I thought Advent Children informed Remake, but Rebirth is informing me on how to look at Advent Children, which I think is
the visual language
in a more significant way than Advent Children was to begin with. So it's only additive to me to look at that stuff.
Yeah, it's so
I
nice,
definitely
man.
think that that's so interesting.
Yeah, it's so nice, and like even watching Advent Children before Rebirth came out, I went to theaters with Aaliyah. We were just like, this is awesome. And I appreciate it on a much deeper level at that point. How you doing? What was that? A little bit, yeah. You?
Hey, Aaliyah.
You want to say hi? You want to be disembodied voice and say hi for a second?
Hi,
you don't have to be on camera.
Nice to see you.
Okay.
Or not, but your voice.
Guys, love it.
She's enjoying the talk. She said, "Thank you, Aaliyah."
That's awesome. No, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
Philip is blowing my mind.
Oh, dude, we're going deep. I love this one. We're going crazy, but we always do when we talk. Yeah. But now we just have so much ammunition.
To stop.
Yeah. I mean, we went crazy, and we were like 3 years into a drought of info last time we talked, and we still went crazy. So yeah, we get a lot to go on now. But
that's so true.
I mean, how are we doing? Do you need a break, man? Do you want to take a quick break? Sleep easy.
I'm just eating some little snacks in the meantime. I'm pretty good. I might. Do you want to take?
Let's take like
pause, maybe.
Let's take a 2-second break, guys, in the chat. Take a break, get a stretch in, get a snack, whatever. I'm gonna take 1 second myself, and then we'll continue this. We'll do a short like question session at the end for the chat. Do you guys want to ask us specific stuff? Idea. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, give us 1 second. We'll be right back.
I'm still here, but I'm gonna step away. Give me 1 second. Dude, fucking Phil is going off, dude. I didn't realize that we were gonna get into the weeds like this, but goddamn, is everything that we're talking about actually so cool. We always get into something, and I'm just thinking to myself, Jesus Christ. Sephiroth Nibelheim flashback is on like top tier list of things that I want, other than like everything else that we've sort of already discussed with Sephiroth. But goddamn, is that such a good idea? I love it. I want to see more of that. It actually makes me excited to see more Sephiroth stuff, and for part 3 to focus somewhat on him, and then the potential of like what that could look like, because we haven't gotten a lot. We've got not as much Sephiroth stuff in this, I feel like. But this fucking conversation blowing my mind. Yeah, this can be a TikTok. That's the way that we discussed it, other than off camera. That this is what we were gonna do. I think that Joshy Poo, it's not supposed to be like exactly at the same time, because I feel like you said, it's sort of a separate realization. But I do think that we are privy to information we're privy to information that Cloud doesn't know before it happens in Rebirth. I almost feel like it'd be almost more appropriate to see it in a way where, but that's the other thing is that we also would have to then discuss like what the POV is. I'm sorry, I didn't even leave. I was like, I'm just gonna stay here.
It's all good, yeah.
I'm gonna scoot out just for a second myself.
No, it's okay. We'll take turns watching the kids. Yeah. Now I'll watch the kids.
That's right.
You go. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'll talk to chat for a
I
second.
need a
Anyways,
break.
yeah. Everybody who's been here, I didn't get to say hi to. Hello. Just want to make sure I, focus on our guests and treat them good and don't ignore them. Hi. We had some subs too. Thank you guys so much for the subs. We had Alchemist. We had Matthew at the beginning. You guys are the best. Hello. I do want to chat with you guys at the end, and we'll take some stuff. Loved your talk with Baby Seal. Thank you, Kawhi. Yeah, we had some follows too. Welcome everybody who's new. If you're new to the channel, I am a filmmaker. You may have seen some of my work from China, my documentary work, my fight scenes. We love talking about FF7, analyzing the cinematic language here. I do it on YouTube. I break down World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, a lot of stuff. It's a blast. Hello, Shay. Hello, Sugar. Zan. Yeah, I'm so excited. So excited. I saw a lot of you guys saying you liked what we were talking about. We got a really good synergy attack here, me and Sleepy. We always do, because we both love filmmaking. We love scenes. We love the science of scenes, character. So we always motivate each other to think of really cool stuff. So it's very fun. Also, guys, I recorded this the other day. I just haven't edited it yet. I'm going to edit it one of these days. I did a full shot-for-shot breakdown and analysis of the ending of Rebirth. It's pretty long. It's definitely at least an hour or something like that. So just editing it, and I'll have that up soon. But oh man, I thought of a lot of cool stuff. There. So yeah. Sephiroth thinks Cloud ability to change the course of things has to do with his genes. I could see them leaning into the gene stuff with the sort of Advent Children, like mimetic legacy type stuff. But we'll see what happens. Yeah. We love long content. Thank you, Kawaii. Can't wait to watch it. Yeah, I went deep. I went really deep, and I explained, why each shot, what it might mean, what I think it definitely does mean. Some of it's a little bit more ambiguous, actually, but of course, I think I've got a good handle on most of it. So, very exciting. What's up, Zidane? How you doing? Everyone should be involved in you're talking about the live stream sequence? Everyone's gonna be involved in it. I don't think so. I think they'll keep it. I think keep it faithful. But if they did do that, I'm sure they'd have a very good reason for it. Yeah, like I said, he opens up to Tifa in chapter 9 of Rebirth for a very specific reason. I think they're building towards the live stream sequence. Also, they have Tifa go into the live stream and then tell Cloud what she saw of Cloud and right. I think they're clearly building up to them being together. It's a cool theory that everyone would be involved in it, but I don't see it personally. Yeah. I don't see it. Thank you for the content. No worries. Kinziru. You're being awesome. Yeah, listen, guys. And he's back. My main thing is I love the trilogy. It's so well done. I love FF7. It's a celebration of FF7, the trilogy. If you don't see that, you're just, like I said, confirmation bias. Looking for the wrong stuff, man. Like, oh, God, it's different because, they acted this time. They weren't Lego figures. Where it's like, no kidding. That's the point of a remake. But yeah, people are just a lot of people are super married to the OG in ways that I think, like if you were to play it now, again showing to Aaliyah now, someone who's never played it when they were young, it's just a super different experience. She still gets the charm, man. She still gets the charm and the beauty of the music, especially Nobuo's music. She still gets all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, compared to the remakes, it's obviously much more emotional and impactful to her. Yeah. But anyways. What do you want to? So Sleep Easy. Do you want to? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. I just realized the same thing myself.
Do you want to go anywhere with the conversation next, or should we just keep going crazy? Because let me know if there's anything you want to touch on.
Right now I'm kind of like free flowing at this point because there's just been so much interesting.
Yeah, man.
A lot of interesting. So I'm gonna have to go through this conversation like after we're done because
dude, we
touching
came
on
up.
the Sephiroth stuff was.
Yeah.
No, go for it.
We came up with some juice. I agree. I was just saying to Leah on my break, dude. I'm like, we came up with some awesome stuff. I was saying to chat when you were gone, like me and you love a lot of the same stuff, like filmmaking. So we are always kind of in the same headspace in a really great way. So, but yeah, like I said, I think the reason that a lot of people were like, wow, I never thought about this stuff or didn't look at it that way is because I'm trying to see the good in it as well. And I'm unpacking it and celebrating the game of FF7 and the legacy of it with this trilogy, as opposed to like only trying to see what's different, which I think a lot of people are doing, and therefore not only missing the message of like the amazing scenes and the emotions of them, but But yeah, they're kind of just trying to play like where's Waldo? What's different in the trilogy? Which is like, well, yeah, of course there's stuff that's different because
I
it's
think
improved.
that
But
there's definitely almost a purposeful aspect of it, but not in the sense of wanting you to criticize it.
yeah,
It's meant to invoke
totally.
an emotion when something is out of place. Like that was the whole thing Remake was doing, was with the introduction of Sephiroth so early, is like,
Yep.
this is not supposed to be happening. Like, why is this happening?
Yes.
And that, to me, coming in from all of the sort of prep work that I had done to get there,
Yeah.
was the uh the fact that it was unsettling. I didn't feel prepared. I felt like something was wrong with like what the world of Final Fantasy VII was, because of what was happening. And I thought that that was kind of ingenious. I do think that I will say this, because I just recently watched a movie. I went to see the Challengers. Have you heard anything about this movie?
I haven't seen it yet with
I just saw
Zendaya.
Challengers.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. It has a very strong tone immediately in, and I think that that tone was very like aggressive and very like in your face, and I'm very into that kind of art that is like unabashedly just going straight for the jugular of like, this is the way that this movie's gonna be. And I recognize that at the start of the movie. I was like, this is my thing. I like this a lot. But in my mind, I was like, the movie has yet to earn me going along with it 100% now. So it's starting off really well for me, but it hasn't earned my sort of like my complete buy-in, which is the exact way that I felt about. Eventually, it did. I actually thought Challengers was a fantastic movie and totally deserves to be watched. But with Remake, it was the same thing, where I was like, I know that this is great. Like, I'm getting the sense of the energy is so like loud, and like it's going all in, and it's doing everything that you could possibly do to like want people to engage with it. With the Scorpion Sentinel fight, like 10 out of 10 game right there. But we all know that there's like, several more hours of a game that are needing to be played. So as much as like the beginning of the game had bought me into the fact that I was interested, it took a lot more for the game to do in order for me to feel like, you know what, I'm in. And I kind of got that by the end of Remake, where I was like, you know what, like, enough has been done artistically and enough passion has been shown artistically to warrant me being interested in where this goes. And honestly, like, I didn't expect Rebirth to be half the game that it actually was. I was expecting it to cater not just like to me, like, but to people who are paying attention to Remake.
Yeah.
And kind of that's it. I didn't want to expect anymore. I felt like I had set the bar to a reasonable standard of high for a game that is a sequel to this kind of game, and it just went so far beyond. Again, like I said to Phil earlier, like, it took the wind out of me. Like, it went so hard in so many directions that I think that people will be talking about Rebirth for a lot longer than I think, because it seems like everyone kind of chewed it up and spit it out, like, and just like was like moving on. But I feel like this is going to be a game that people revisit over and over again, because there are
it says we're
stream.
Are we back?
Okay, we're back. We are.
Okay.
I think.
Let me say refresh. If it's gone for chat, just refresh. It's back. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. But
me neither. I'd never seen that before. I was just looking at us. But
yeah, we're on the call, so we're like, wait, what? Yeah.
Okay, we were just still.
Somebody said I yelped.
Whole idea.
Ah! Okay, they're back.
The idea is just to say that Rebirth is like way more than a game than even Remake was to me, where it almost feels like Remake was like a prequel to what eventually was going to be what Rebirth ended up being. Like the vastness
Remake feels like a prologue. That's exactly what it feels. It feels like a prologue. Rebirth is so gargantuan. I feel like, and even so much better at expanding the story and everything. Like, it's amazing. And looking back at Remake, I'm like, oh yeah, it feels like the intro couple scenes. It really does. Like, it feels like the original. Yeah, and it's crazy.
I don't know if you saw a comparison of mine, but I did like a shot side by side of like a Crisis Core Genesis falling into the live stream shot and Cloud falling after Cloud gets pushed in there by Aerith into the portal.
Yeah.
And literally the model figure is the same.
That's so cool.
Like they're like it's the same speed and everything, but I use that as a point of illustration because it's also like in that same sequence, it's also Aerith reaching out her hand at the end of the original game. It's also like it's like 5 other scenes, but the thing about Rebirth is like every shot and every line of dialogue is so densely packed that like I'm just begging the game to just hold on a fucking second.
Yeah.
So that I can process.
Oh yeah, totally.
How much there is.
Yeah. And it's funny because that whole sequence is like hours, like through the last couple chapters of just amazing scenes, and I'm like, as what I do for content, I'm like, I can't say anything. I'm supposed to break down all the scenes. It's just not stopping. It's like a movie length thing I have to break down now. Yeah.
You literally, I felt like an asshole because I just kept pausing in the middle of the scenes because I was just like, you're not letting like me catch my breath just to be able to like.
Yeah, and it's just all so good.
People to process it.
Yeah, it's like stop. This isn't normal. Like this is not normal. Only a couple artists do this. Like like Hideo Kojima comes to mind too, where it's like, all right, I've literally watched like an hour cutscene. like it's too good. It's too good. Slow down. Yeah. But no, here's the thing. I got one for you. You ready for this?
Begging for it to slow down. Yes.
Visual language. I got one for
100%.
you. This is why it's adding to everything in such meaningful ways. We talked about Advent Children. Aerith in the church pushes Cloud when again, this is my thought on it. I think I'm on point with this. Is she's letting Cloud go both physically, romantically, whatever you want to say, saving him, pushing him out of the church, realizing it's not ethical anyway what I'm doing here. He thinks he's my ex-boyfriend. And he's not in the know because I'm not telling him. This is very predatory. Okay, I'm gonna let him go now. But she's also saving him from Sephiroth, and she's saying, "I'm gonna sacrifice myself. He's walking the door to kill me right now. He's gonna kill my true self. I'm gonna die. You gotta get over it." But here's some visual imagery for you. She pushes him in. He falls into this other thing. It almost looks like water. The church at the end of Advent Children. He's now in the holy water, being cleansed. Right? He's been saved again by Aerith. He's been saved by her again in the water, and that's where she pushes him to leave that world.
This is such a good visual representation because the idea of that in Crisis Core is the water's surface. And the water surface is actually depicted several different places in Rebirth, but it's a very interesting... that is such a good interpretation of that scene, Phil.
Yeah, man, right?
Like,
but this is what I'm trying to tell you. Like, guys, the layers... Right? It's okay. It's not only that scene is like beautiful on its own.
I'm like, Phil, shut up! Why are you making more work for me?
But think about it, right? Like, it's a push. Too much. And think about the layers here. It's referencing and making Advent Children more meaningful. It's also the scene where at the end, he's sitting in the water and he sees Aerith walk away. Another interaction, another final goodbye in the church. She says goodbye to him there for her life. It's the last time they can hold each other and they can hug each other. And then she pushes him away. And then at the end, she says, "It's all right. I saved you again. This time you're okay. I'm going to leave now forever," with Zack, right? It's like, oh man, it's so good. It's so good. The inception of Cloud getting his first time, think about it, Sleep Easy. His first time seeing another world, the dream world of Aerith, right? And then his last time, she finally leaves at the end of Advent Children. You'll never see that Aerith again. That's, Baby Seal called her Omni Aerith, right? It's a popular term, right? That's her true self. I don't want to say her live stream self. That's the last time you see her. And that's the first time Cloud sees her in the church. It's the same shot. Oh, it's too good.
It's actually pretty incredible. Also, you have Oh God. Okay. Well. Stop.
Okay, I'll stop.
I'm like, I literally am thinking to myself like, there's just too much to talk about. But
Yeah.
that is such obviously there's also like Aerith resolution scene sequence vibes in there too. But then
Yes.
at the same time, you also have paralleling that Sephiroth talking about the push that Cloud needs
Hey.
after that. And it's also Aerith pushing, and then, but the thing about this is why, oh God damn it, there's too many things to talk about. The blessing is also something that comes up
The what you said?
where like Aerith, the blessing.
Oh
of
yeah,
so
Sephiroth's
there's the
blessing.
waters. There's the Sephiroth's blessing is an equivalent to also like the Loveless blessing, the goddess's blessing.
Of course, man. Of course.
But then at the same time, it's the water surface part that gets me, because literally in the final shot where Aerith shows up with to fight Sephiroth,
Yep,
the
on
landscape
the
changes
lake.
and you see those like little
Yeah.
All right.
Which is also her burial. That's when she's about to be buried. Like it's happening, and Cloud's like blocking it out. Oh yeah, man. It's too good.
Touche, Phil.
It's too good, man. I'm telling you.
Touche.
But so the reason I'm saying all this is like, again, for the kind of naysayers, like, oh, it's just random mumbo jumbo and it's confusing and it's just like meta and it's all this stuff. It's just new stuff. They're ruining the story. Like, it is so layered in meaningful visual language and referential to its own self. You know, this living body that is the compilation of FF7 at this point, and like is making it so now when you go back and watch Advent Children, you'll be like, oh my goodness, that's what Phil was talking about, and it's just making everything make more sense. And like I said, they teach us in Rebirth, okay, the gold, the sort of like rainbow gold light means something's happening. There's a decision being made. There's something's changing. The world, there's something going on with the worlds here. It's forming. Okay, they teach us that. They taught us what the black whispers mean. They taught us what the white whispers mean. They taught us what the white materia means. Okay, now that's empty. Okay, now it's full again. Like now he's switching. There's so much kind of like visual teachings of us that in the ending of Rebirth, they're then saying, okay, now that you know all this, now that we've taught you all this, we're gonna give you some information.
This
okay.
is
And then at the
okay.
end.
So this is exactly how Rebirth feels. Is that it's a big, just very long but simple math equation.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, this plus this, and it just keeps like 50 fucking pluses later, and then it's like at the end, it just is like equals what, and that's sort of like up to you to figure that out. Is that it feels very much like the game does everything in its power through the visual language, through the thematic language of the game, to give you the tools of understanding it without making you feel like a dumbass and like that it's just being forced onto you. It feels like that's the part that you earn. You earn the I'm paying attention. Okay, the payoff is that I am introduced to mysteries, like what is now the holy materia, like what is Aerith's sort of role now because of this stuff. So
and that's what's cool.
The earning of it is not the answer. The earning of it is to be able to have an educated decision on what you think will happen. Not the answer though.
And sort of conversely too, like on top of that is, you know, there's layers of mystery. Right. Again, if you're playing it the first time, I doubt you're going to be looking at it through the lens of like, oh, okay, we're looking at the white materia, the holy, this is the gold light, and you're just going to be kind of enjoying it, looking for the main things as a new player, which is like, oh, wait a second. Again, imagine you don't even know what FF7 is, and you play Remake and Rebirth. You'll be like, oh my god, wait, Aerith wasn't there in that shot. She's actually gone. She's actually dead. Cloud is hallucinating. Like that's a humongous revelation. Again, we take that for granted because we know what happened in the original, but this is how they're forming it as a great piece of art. But you know, and then there's the different layers, which is like, okay, at the end it's all gonna make sense when you see part 3 and you go back and be, okay, the rainbow light, the white whispers are Aerith controlling, the black is Sephiroth. Okay, I see what's happening here. But then when you go to the ending, it'll be like, all right, but for us, like Sleepy's just said, now you can kind of have a full education of what this all means, and it already has meaning, as opposed to just like big twist at the end and then that's what happened. Right, so they're laying the groundwork. They're planning it so well, and man, I had expectations for the end of Rebirth, but they delivered something that, again, I don't know if I've ever seen something in a video game at all that has this level of just visual information. Every single shot being absolutely mandatory, like so important in what they're showing, what they're not showing, what they're withholding. It's just like, it's mind-blowing stuff. It really is.
For Remake, it was very much a like, just, you can probably just watch the cutscenes and understand enough of what the game has done.
Yes.
To put together the sort of direction that they were going in for the future, and be like, okay, like I don't have to play this game. But the problem with, and the beauty of it, it's the double-edged sword of like what Rebirth is that it's not just the cutscenes. It's every line, it's every quest. Like so and this is what I was saying to you at first, like when we started, is that I didn't want to like look at it from the content creator, like how do I spin this whole game into making like a whirlwind of content, because the game will be relevant and people are, you know, going to be talking about it, and that's when the algorithm is going to be like at its all-time peak, and it's going to be shoving this in everybody's faces. I was like, I'm going to be a participant. Started Rebirth. First thing that you look at is it says series of crises. So crises, which is like, okay, that's we're confirming that the compilation is important. Which my brain is like, because I've educated myself, is like, that's fucking huge, because Remake was like clearly hinting at it, but it's just like the game just started just unabashedly saying it, and then you have a stamp in the next shot next to a Benora apple, which is the infinite in mystery, is the gift of the goddess, essentially equivalent. That's what that is. And this goes back to what I was saying, is it's the stamp plus apple equals, and then we see Zack, and then you're just like, what the, like the amount of, so not only is the game speaking enough for itself, where you could just give this game to somebody who just hasn't played any of them, and it's like introducing it to that, I immediately was like, why the fuck is this game going so hard for me, somebody who is like knows everything that they could know, and still getting away with being it's so overwhelming to the point where I think it overrides the logistical part of my brain, and that the game is like forcing me into submission to feel it rather than just observe it. And that's that's horrible, because it just makes my job so much harder. But at the same time, as like a player, I felt like that was the best way to experience the game.
Absolutely,
in a lot of ways.
Absolutely, and that's what I always say this in filmmaking in general. Like, I know when a film is really good if I'm watching it and I've completely like foregone any of the thoughts that I'll talk about. Like, oh yeah, this was shot with a 50mm lens, or like, if I'm just completely like a kid again watching the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, this is amazing. It's just so good that it's completely wrapped.
Because your brain is, especially as a filmmaker, you are thinking like as something, like at the beginning of every movie, you are looking for, you're the bloodhound looking for, how does this end?
Exactly. That
movie
too.
I just started watching, how does everything line up? At least that's how my brain works, is that it's very much just like, figure this out before the film tells me what I need to know.
That's the theorist in you. That's the theorist in you coming out too, which I actually don't have that as much. I'm more almost on like the art tools end of it. A lot of time I'll be like, oh okay, so that's so awesome they chose that. Like, it's like what I talk about on my channel. Oh, that's awesome they chose that lens. They chose a long lens during that line because they wanted to punctuate what she was feeling in that line, which was an emotional reaction, as opposed to the, okay, we're talking about the world. They've pulled out to the wide shot to show the world. Like, so that's more what my brain latches onto, and I like to try and immerse myself in the story. But yes, there'll be times where I'm like, okay, this is a writing function because that person's gonna die in a couple scenes. Like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely those moments where, well, and that I still feel the same way about it, where it's like, at a certain point, if the film catches me off guard, then it's succeeded. It's
exactly.
Not just because it's like, oh, you tricked me. It's more just like no, I'm like falling into the immersion of the film. And
yeah, exactly.
And I've forgotten that I'm a filmmaker, or that I'm like, I enjoy writing stories and I'm thinking about it on that calculated level, which I think Rebirth, it's like coming at it from the exact opposite end for me, where it's like, we care about all of the visual language so much that we're going to show you and present that to you to a point where you just know that we care about it as much as you care about it.
Oh,
And because of that, it's okay now. Like, you can relax, like you're in good hands.
Totally.
And you don't have to feel like you need to pick it apart, which I feel like is a direct sort of response from Remake specifically. I feel like this game is not only just doubling down on like what it's trying to do, it's also like, we're gonna beat you over the head
Yes.
with how good this direction is, and show you how committed we are to caring about like this story.
Totally,
and it's
man.
just
So
it's
committed.
unbelievable. I haven't seen anything like Rebirth like ever
Same,
do
dude.
that, where it's just like you said, like, we're talking about 100+ hours of content, and every part of it felt like well constructed and well thought out, even in the most minor of ways.
It's unbelievable. Like, especially
I'm sorry
when
to
we
like
hit
that
the,
we
like...
just
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, go crazy.
sorry.
But yeah, like when
I was
we
just
talk
gonna
about
say, I'm just shocked.
the trial scenes, man. I think it was at that point where I was like, oh my god, yeah, this is not only the best Final Fantasy game ever, which is crazy thing for me to say. Like, I'm a lifelong fan. I speak so highly of FF10 being like, you know, sort of like the best sort of character and like narrative driven thing. That's no small statement for me to say that. But I'm like, when we get to the trials, it kind of hit me as like, oh, this is so character rich, so emotionally rich, not just like mechanically magic system rich and kind of like plot rich stuff. And that's where it hit me, is, oh yeah, this is on a completely different level, just beyond like the function of the story. And also, I've said this for years. I've said this since Remake happened. Like, nobody has to worry. Everybody's gonna get their cake and eat it. Like us who are more, you know, like lifelong fans. Me who's like, oh, I just want like the OG retold with some new cool stuff. And then there's people who are like, I want only new stuff. I do not care about the original, like, go in a completely different direction, you know, get the payoff and stuff. Like, we're all getting our cake and eating it. It's absolutely amazing. We're getting a perfect retelling of every scene from OG, and we're getting that crazy payoff and the new stuff and the new mechanics that me and Sleep Easy can, you know, dissect for a million hours, and like, you know, some insane psychopath. And then it's still just as great if you don't know anything. You just play it and enjoy the trilogy. It's unbelievable, like, what they're doing, and we all get to pretty much have what we wanted. It's completely insane. Even traditionalists.
That's what doesn't make sense.
No, even traditionalists who are like,
That's
I
what
want
doesn't
nothing
make
new.
sense.
You guys suck. I think they're still gonna win, and we're still gonna get just all the awesome base
Right.
scenes that'll make perfect sense. Like I said, it's more OG than the OG. It's more FF7 than FF7. I really still stand by that. The ending is just a beautiful, like, exploration of you know, loss. And like I said, when it first hit me, when Aerith's song starts playing during Jenova, and I was like, oh my god, this is what they did. What did we all think as kids? Yeah, but she can't actually be dead. Like, she's gonna revive. Like, it's Aerith. Like, she's one of our main characters. She's not gonna die. You're in denial, just like Cloud is. And that's when I realized, like, these sons of bitches. Like, it's the next level.
That was my realization too, where I was just like, this is not just a choice based off of shock value. That, I think, is why that ending works so well for me, because everyone's like, they were trying to outsmart the smart people and the people who were thinking about it for like 3 years. No, they did what they are doing to Sephiroth, is that they humanized a moment that we didn't think could be humanized more.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Like that
exactly.
it had, that
and
there
a lot
was
of people
nothing
are just
left to give.
Yeah, and the only people that still have problems with it are the people who are just too instant gratification. Like, I need to know what's changed and what's different, because, like, we're clearly going to get it in part 3 what actually happened. It's clearly a complete delusion what you're seeing. So there's no way they don't show what happened and have Cloud face that. So you're gonna get the scene. And it's a bigger project now, man. It's evolved beyond the original, which, again, I played it right before I played it in Rebirth, the Aerith death scene. I mean, minimalist is one way of putting it. A lot of it makes just downright no sense. Like, for example, Cloud just beat up Aerith and tried to kill her at the Temple of Ancients, and then he's like, stand back, I'm gonna go save her alone, and then goes and save her, and they're like, okay, and lets him go and save her alone. It makes no sense. Like, they just stand there, right? There's a lot of stuff
I completely agree.
Yeah, it's completely insanity. And then after that, you know, the moment, of course, with her music playing during the Jenova fight is great. And then Sephiroth gives this crazy like pontification and gives his speech, but like it's so minimalist, man. I'm telling you, without Nobuo's music, it's not that hard hitting. And of course, the cool scenes in the filmmaking where he lowers her into the lake. But I'm telling you, man, it's gonna hit so much different when we have Cloud have to face like the stages of grief and deal with it. It's gonna hit hard. It's gonna make Advent Children make more sense, like I said. And now, again, visual language, Sleep Easy. When you see Aerith back to back, clasping hands, like it's Advent Children in the Forgotten Forest when he goes and like the visual layers, man. That's Aerith, and that's why I keep telling people like look for the simplest answer. A lot of people are like, okay, that's actually, you know, second Aerith in third world, but she's got the fourth world Materia in fifth world clothes. And I'm like, no. You're thinking too crazy. It's Advent Children Aerith. Like, that's the same shot, the same visual language, the same background. Like, come on, you know? The
soundtrack for that scene, let me pull it up just because it was something the scene right after you beat Sephiroth and Aerith and Cloud are standing back to back. It's called Everybody's Waiting, and that is the line that is spoken in Advent Children to Kadaj.
Yep.
When
he dies.
He is embraced by the life stream.
Yep.
Yes. And I'm just thinking to myself, fuck you.
You see?
How cool is that? Ending, I was just like, how the fuck do you keep doing this and making it still like... I think also just because I think a lot of people are very... back to back about like the ending is super sinister. There is the unsettling aspect of after Aerith's death where you're just like, that's not fucking Aerith. Where you're just like dead-eyed Aerith is meant to be dead-eyed Aerith. But then in the ending cutscene, it also feels like Aerith, there's some hopefulness in there somewhere in that scene where it's like it's still unsettling. Cloud is still like bonkers nuts, crazy balls.
Oh, totally.
And like, what the fuck is he doing with the black materia? And like, he's seeing things that are not there. But at the same time, there is a part of that final cutscene in the tone where it just slightly undercuts itself on purpose to just give you that just a droplet of insecurity about being like, is this like Aerith or is this Jenova? And it's like you're convinced it's Jenova up until the end cutscene, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just like, I don't know who. So I do feel like in ending cutscene, it's got to be like a little bit of everything because of like what you're saying is like the reason I'm even bringing this up is just because you're right is that usually the first emotional instinct that this game presents you is the right instinct.
Yeah.
Like it's not trying to trick you there.
Yeah.
It's trying to trick you visually, like of like kind of throwing in all these pieces to like try and sift through, but the emotional reaction is it's a little bit of everything that's happening right now. It feels like.
And also like again, look for the simplest answer. Like, you know, when Promises to Keep first aired on stage at the Game Awards, right? Yeah. I was literally like, oh, she's dead. Yeah. No, she's dying. Oh my God.
Yes.
That is a
yeah, we were convinced.
That's an amazing Nobuo didn't put one of his best songs out for like a fake like that. That's clearly a farewell song to Aerith and a tribute to Aerith. Also, it plays at the end of the game. In my opinion, the end cutscene, it's Aerith's goodbye, man. From the church where she pushes him the final date all the way up to where the ship flies away and she says goodbye, literally. That's her goodbye, man. That's her final goodbye to Cloud. He doesn't know it because he's lost his mind, but that's her for herself as a person who had to give up her life, you know, just saying goodbye for the last time. And I think it's beautifully done. So yeah, I do think that is definitely like Advent Children Aerith that Cloud is seeing, and I don't think he ever stops seeing that Aerith until the end of Advent Children, where she walks out of the church. And I think that's such a cool concept. again, explaining how these things work. Not just like, how is he speaking to Aerith and Advent Children, like hallucinating? It's not hallucination. It's not Jenova. Like, what's going on here? So yeah, it's got to be.
This is where we get into one of like my favorite discussions about Advent Children, which is that consciousness, and this is why I love the Tifa fucking live stream sequences. Is that
so good.
In Advent Children, they explain in so many words that consciousness not only lives on after death, but people's consciousness are a part of you as well. So the Aerith that's speaking to Cloud in Advent Children is the part of her that exists inside of Cloud. Like as a person, she's not like, it's not made up Aerith. It's like literally she is a part of him, and because he's still him, she is also alive.
Totally.
This is very much where I think that we're getting into another part of this like sort of continuously spiraling discussion. You can just put us in like, I don't know, like a cell together.
Yeah, pretty much at this point. Like I keep seeing the word psychopath. Like that's essentially what's happening.
Yeah.
We're just degrading like Cloud, or like not like Cloud, I guess, into this like Roche. You know, we're going deeper and deeper.
We're gonna both be wearing the black cloak figures.
Yeah,
we can
exactly.
somehow swing that in the Photoshop edit of a thumbnail.
Yeah, totally.
That's what we're gonna look like. The thought was just to say that the part of the goddess story is giving Cloud, or giving the hero the blessing of the goddess, and that's something that they say in the Loveless reenactment in Rebirth, and it's something that is bestowed onto the sword. Of it's like it's done through the sword.
Yeah.
That there's a piece of the goddess inside of it. And this goes in now, because everything is so literal emotionally, is that I think that that's how Aerith exists with Cloud. Is that
totally.
Aerith bestowed a part of her blessing, her power, onto him, and that is the piece of consciousness that is inside of Cloud. But the thing is, and the more blatant language that was used with Sephiroth is that he also, god damn it,
I just got the blessing of the goddess, man. Aaliyah just gave me the blessing of the goddess. It's freaking pizza. Holy shit, she's the best. Anyway, sorry.
Damn, dude. You're gonna share that, dude?
Absolutely. Once we're in our cell, once they put us in the cell together, you can have some. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That will make the cell a little bit more home.
Yeah.
It's good. The thought that was just occurring to me is that Sephiroth also bestows his blessing to Cloud.
Yeah.
And we also know that Sephiroth's consciousness is also a part of Cloud. All right, we'll figure out the mailing situation with that.
Yes.
I don't even want to look at you eating it. I'm fucking starving.
Get something, man.
I'm like fucking heard. The point of all this is just to say that it's also represented through the Buster Sword at the end with the meteor, with the black materia.
Yeah.
Is that
he goes,
Cloud inserts it into the... It's gonna be so fucking crazy, dude. The amount of visual language that I can't sing this game's praises enough. I feel like this is what this is also gonna become, is just like a... We're too aligned on everything.
Yeah. We don't have much contention. I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
It's actually driving us to some
like,
really cool theories.
Yeah, for sure. I just am gonna be very interested to see sort of that overlap of like consciousness being depicted. I do think that that's what makes the Aerith that we're looking at so interesting. I feel like what will happen is that we're gonna start seeing Aerith like fade away a little bit, where like, because it's just a piece of her that she's like she's just temporarily shielded Cloud from the impact of Meteor, which is another sort of like visual language that my brain is making a connection to, is that Cloud is the planet, Aerith is wholly sort of surrounding Cloud at the end. There is that very weird visual like representation of that after Aerith's death, where Sephiroth kind of takes flight into the air.
Yep.
To start the Jenova fight, and you just see a ring of light around Cloud, like that's the shield.
Oh yeah,
like that
totally.
world is the.
Yeah, he walks up to her corpse,
but then,
and then he's like surrounded in this sphere, and nobody else is there. He's completely deranged. Here's a real crazy visual language one for you, man. You ready? So I just did it in my ending scene breakdown. When you see the sword, Cloud deflects it, saves Aerith, the sword goes in the ground. What then happens to the sword? The whispers surround the sword. Which whispers? The white whispers.
Yes.
Aerith kills herself with the sword, is what I'm telling you. But that's a story for another time. I think she literally moved it back. It's like, sorry, Cloud, I gotta die to save you. And moved it over.
Yes. I do think that it is her will that is correcting the ending of it. And they explained it already. They say essentially that Aerith has to die. Aerith has to die. In every version of this story, Aerith dies.
Yeah.
Kate Sith, no less, is the fucking one who's like giving us the lore dump. I was like, this is the only way I was gonna love this motherfucker is that you make him the delivery device for all of the Loveless bullshit.
He's awesome, man. I love Kate Sith. Like, I never thought I'd say it either. Me and Aaliyah love Kate Sith. He's so fun.
He's the best. He's the best.
Yeah, and
he's
they did the same thing they did with Dyne. Like, they got rid of the goofy like mustache twirler with Dyne. Like, I'll destroy everything, including Marlene. It's just like, what? Like, you completely lost me in the OG. And then in Kate Sith in the OG, when he's like, oh yeah, I'm a spy for Shinra. Oh, by the way, got Marlene on the phone. Do anything funny, she dies. It's like, whoa, what the? How am I supposed to relate to this guy? He's just like an evil piece of garbage. Yeah.
This fucking cat is nuts, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So then in the remake, it's like, no, man, I know it's like everybody who dies, who goes into the temple, I'd rather it was them than you, man. It's like, oh, that's a really meaningful thing. It makes sense why he would do that. Also, it's, it's Reeve, and he's like a cool guy in Rebirth. It wouldn't make sense. Well,
I definitely think that like the way that they did everything was interesting, in the way that all of the new introductions of characters are the reintroduction of like Dyne. I know that people tonally really, this is the problem with Rebirth too, is that people were like, I didn't really like that scene, and then I like, when I was experiencing it, I was like, I completely disagree.
You're talking about the Dyne scene?
I actually love this more. Yeah,
Dyne is so much better
I really
in Rebirth.
enjoyed.
I will fight anybody on it.
Like aspects of it.
Dude,
I liked aspects of the original, meaning like the set location I liked, but in the way that they introduced Dyne, and then like his whole, oh god, there's so much stuff that they did there too, where
it's so much better.
Language was.
That's why I just always come to people who say, oh, the Dyne Sea is better. It's like, no, it's not, dude. It's Lego characters, and you're like, oh, but the two crosses, and this is like, okay, the like 10 pixels that are supposed to depict two crosses with Lego people bellowing with no acting, no anything. Also, not description like you get in a novel, just blank text on a screen, nothing to accompany it. And what does Cloud say to Barrett in the original about that? Do they comfort him? No, don't say anything. You see what I mean? There's nothing there. There's nothing that happens that's realistic. Like, and in the remake, instead of this kind of like mustache twirler, I'll destroy everything. Like, that line is always kind of sus. And then he's like, oh, I'll destroy Marlene too. What? You completely lost me on this, And then it goes on and on and on. It's just not that good yet. It's not that good. Without Nobuo's music, again, it's not as meaningful. And then Dyne, like this sort of ambiguity of Dyne not forgiving Barrett, but still saving him by attacking the Shinra soldiers and dying. But he's too afraid to die. Like the original, he just dies. He's too afraid to die in the Rebirth. That's very complex. And then he gets shot, kind of redeeming himself, not really, didn't want to save Barrett.
You are giving me another fucking brain blast here, dude. So
I got one more thought. Hold it for 1 second.
Okay, yeah.
And then guess what? What does he say to Barrett? We're talking about thematic stuff and how it's more meaningful in Rebirth. He says, that guilt, man. You're going to carry that guilt. What does Cloud do in Advent Children? What does Cloud do with Aerith? He carries the guilt, man. It's everything is much more connected. It makes more sense. You see what I mean? So anyways, take it from here. What?
I ate goldfish at the wrong time. Give me a second. You're... 1 second. Fuck.
I'm telling you guys, makes everything more meaningful.
Typically, I'm not snacking and streaming, only because, but I feel like this is popcorn eating conversation. I'm like, yeah, and another thing, and it's like listening to Phil talk. I'm like laying back. Where's my hot dog? Where's my $16
Let's get it.
fucking
Let's
icy
get it.
cream?
Yep.
But the thought here is that the puppet strings idea is that sort of what Dine's sort of performance almost feels like. Is that the way he moves his body is so like puppet like, which I think is another direct correlation to like the Sephiroth's lines about like Cloud is a puppet. He says that at the end of this too. But the thing about that is interesting to me is because the voices that I think what does he say before he grows that like crazy fucking arm that he doesn't hear his wife's voice as clearly.
I'm telling you, man, listen, this is an Aaliyah inspired theory, which I love. It's saying, why does Marlene have powers? What's going on with Dine? What's going on with Dine, man? He's got some powers. What's going on? And he swears he has brain damage, obviously, but he swears he hears Eleanor calling to him to come home or whatever. It's like, does he actually hear her in the live stream? Is he part ancient? Is that why Marlene has these powers? I'm telling you, man. So it's not explicit, but it's like getting you thinking, what's going on with Marlene?
What's she doing over there?
Yeah.
Marlene.
Exactly.
I definitely think that's also sort of like the goddess's blessing thing too with in Remake, where when Aerith touches somebody that is like in tune with the planet, it kind of unlocks that sort of vision. That's such a oh my god, there's just too many fucking thoughts, dude. But the
so exciting. Yeah.
That was the part is that the part that I was getting at was that you kind of it is sort of ambiguous right at the end whether or not because at first it very much is like he's delusional. Yeah. Like Dine is delusional, but as he's dying, he's like talking to somebody and like kind of he's going through the motions of death. I think that's why it's like, oh, now he definitely is seeing, because that's what we know happens to people is that they sort of see their loved ones before they die, which is also, again, another thing that happens with Tifa, because Tifa almost dies and everyone around her is like also shows up to be like, hey, like you gotta live, you gotta like make it through this sequence.
That was awesome.
But the fact that death and life are depicted in those same ways is very interesting to me. That's like, it's not just like I'm seeing the light. It's more like know that like being alive is the same as being dead in some ways in this world that they're kind of creating, which I think is just super interesting.
Yeah. Totally.
I just like the puppet string aspect of it, just because I feel like that is also built off of the idea of like you being a puppet is also an aspect of hatred.
Yeah.
And the cycle that Sephiroth is trying to end is the puppet string part.
Yes.
He no longer wants things to be commanded by something above him. He just wants to command.
Yes.
That totally. I think is, again, it's just another way of plugging in to like the bigger conversation that we've already kind of been having.
Yeah, man, it's so good. Yeah, this is what Aaliyah's just saying in chat. Yeah, this blew my mind. Again, this one shot is better than the OG Dine scene. Like there's a shot where they point their arms at each other. Looks like Barry's looking into a mirror because it's the opposite arm, because they were holding opposite arms. Like it's what his life could have been without Marlene in his life. He could have been like Dine. Dine could have been like Barry if he had survived and saved Marlene and everything. And there's this shot where they walk out of the shed where he helps him up, and they're like this on each other's shoulders, and you see either like their opposite arm on either side has the gun, and it's just like, whew, chills, man. That's again the sort of visual storytelling you can do in this format that is just super powerful, man. And the sort of tragedy and the kind of emphasis of this is a person who's deeply mentally unwell because he like hit his head. You know, he fell down a cliff and he's got scars all over his head and face. Like he's not thinking clearly a lot of the time. He's like, Barrett's here, Eleanor, let's say hello. again, kind of focusing on the brain damage aspect, but then you realize, wait, is he actually talking to her? So it's super fascinating.
Right.
But yeah, just
I
layers,
definitely
man.
think that line there is because you're talking about dying, and there is something that is visual language wise that I've talked about before, but just because I think you're an enjoyer of that scene, I'll talk about it as well.
Yeah.
But there's a really interesting sort of visual language thing that was developed from I think it started in sort of the book um the Maiden Who Travels the Planet,
Oh, yep,
where
yep. Yeah.
Dyne is depicted in the afterlife as being covered in blood. And it's something that is like sticky. It doesn't wash off.
Right.
And then as I was playing Rebirth, and there's a bunch of other things that connected to that with like red we've talked about before, and blue being contrasts of one another, and sort of like fire and water as like sort of visual representations of like forgiveness, salvation, and then fire being destruction. But the idea of it being that when Barrett falls in the mithril mines into the lake, he's like, oh, I'm like washing off all the grime on me, is when they ask him if he's okay. And then the contrast of that is when you walk into Mount Corel, they pour the wine over his head, and then he's like bathed in like red, right? And then in the dying fight, he's like, I can't get all this blood off of me.
He can't get it off.
He's trying to get. So again, going back to your point of like, is this visual aspect of, because in the live stream we know that he's like covered in this stuff. So in his mind, like during that scene, he's just covered in everyone's blood, which is contrast to like Barrett's own. Again, it's a representation of guilt and like their own like sort of hatred and like the blood on their hands.
It's big.
So yeah.
And at the end of OG,
this game goes fucking hard, dude.
Oh yeah, dude. We just gave like a masterclass on why it's better than the original and then some. But here's the thing, like in the original game, at the end, Barrett's final character moment in his arc is essentially he's right before the end. He's like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done it like that, bombing all those people in Midgar. A lot of people died because of us. Maybe that wasn't the way to save the planet with violence. And it's like, damn, that's a huge thing for Barrett to say. Like,
he blames himself. He realizes that what he was doing was out of hatred. It was for his own benefit that he was acting in the way that he was acting. That his approach was fundamentally wrong, which is also why he's wrong at the end of Rebirth, because the shit that Dyne is throwing onto Barrett is the same thing that Barrett throws onto Cloud by telling him that he's got to carry the whole weight of everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it just all goes back into just like, this is not the right way of like dealing with your fucking issues, dude. This is, you gotta fucking like talk about it and figure it out. But like he's just like, oh, like now we're all putting our faith into one individual. Fuck no. First of all, this guy's out of his mind. But also, like, this is not how this works. This is like a collaborative effort.
Oh yeah, and listen, that's why I love the last
they're just
scene.
Throwing it on him.
There's so much subtext to it. I think he's in the chat. Hello, subtext. There's so much subtext in the last scene where you see them looking at it. Like Barrett looks at Tifa like, "Yeah, we trust you," and it's like they clearly don't. They're scared out of their mind, but they have no other recourse because he knows where Sephiroth is. Like they're like, is he gonna kill us? But he's also the strongest, so they need him to fight Sephiroth. Like it's so cool, man. It's so cool.
Barrett doesn't trust Cloud.
No.
Barrett,
not at all.
In that scene, looks to Tifa. To get a sense of what she is thinking before he makes a judgment call, because he's like, this guy is fucking out of his mind. But the person who knows Cloud, Tifa, is gonna give me any sort of credibility to him at this particular point. Looks over, she's kind of hesitant, but she's not doing anything. So he's like, all right, I'm putting this on to you for now.
Yeah.
Like he's the only reason he's reiterating this point is because he's like, he needs to know. Like it's not, to be clear, like we're all with you, and like you are bearing the weight of all of our like hopes and dreams. Like you better be able to fucking handle it.
Yes.
And for everything to the contrary is true.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so
yeah,
I just thought of something
crazy.
since I have you here, and you are like definitely the most educated human on Earth on Dirge of Cerberus, even more
Sure,
so than the developers who made it. So,
I think so.
so
I hate to say that, but yeah.
yeah, you are. It's just a fact. I'm just telling you. Yeah. So, so here's the thing. Since you're here, what do you
Mhm.
think, or what do you want to put less pressure on you? What do you think or want to happen with Vincent in part 3 to kind of bring in some of the Dirge of Cerberus lore with chaos and stuff like that, and Lucrezia? And how do you think that could work out and play out? Because I have some thoughts too, but like I'd love to hear what you think. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Can you just give me the...
Yes, a gift of the goddess. While you think, Lucas.
Heard,
Okay.
dude.
Thank you. I love it. Okay. So what do you think? Or you can pass. But...
I'm thinking because I think chaos and Omega lore is like super fucking weird, and
Yeah.
I think will 100% play in some way. I really think that the like 1-2 punch here is that they came at us with Crisis Core
Yep.
lore with this one incredibly heavy-handedly.
Mm-hmm.
Part 3 is gonna be fucking Dirge of Cerberus lore to the right hook here. It's gonna end everyone's, and this is also why I think Genesis is gonna show up. But I
Yeah.
think specifically with Vincent and Lucrezia, I think that I actually have talked about this a little bit. I was like, I don't even know what my opinion about this is, but I actually think that knowing there's some effective sort of Ever Crisis lore with like Sephiroth like having a picture of Lucrezia, but
Yeah.
that also being
And Ever
like
Crisis?
who he thinks is Genova. Yes.
Yes. I have thoughts on
He
this
is
that I was gonna let you talk first, but yeah. Let's hear what you think.
the part of it that is interesting to me is that I think that's that sort of like twisted perception of like this is what kind of made Sephiroth into the person that he is
Yeah.
comes to mind when looking at scenes like that, because I feel like that's the energy they just need to capture with the Lucrezia Vincent sort of conflict
Mm-hmm.
with them like kind of going into this whole thing. I just think that they need to maybe I think also maybe they need to pull back a little bit, like a less is more sort of thing. Maybe some VHS tapes sort of
Mm.
sort of storytelling, which I thought was also very effective in like First Soldier.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that also is a very cool icicle in thing.
Yeah.
Maybe
You know
you
it's
can kind
coming.
of get into that a little bit.
Yeah. You know
Because
that's
it
coming.
might not, that would actually be the better way to do that scene flat out is that I think Gast just interviewing Ifalna is like
Yeah.
interesting. I don't think every tape should be that. I think
agree.
it should be the collective tapes of like what he took from Shinra
Mm.
archaeology department, so you can get like Vincent backstory and like you see Lucrezia in the background like wandering around. Like I want that kind of
Oh, yeah.
storytelling for them, because I think all that needs to sort of happen is the intrigue of like who the fuck is that? Like who is, because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
got to think
yeah.
about it from a perspective of new players. Like who the fuck is Lucrezia? Who is like Vincent and all of that? I also think that they're doing a really good job with Vincent already because of
Oh,
his
yeah,
sort
dude.
of like pseudo relationship to the Turks is being really well
Very
crafted.
interesting, right? He talked to him. I was like, ooh, I like this. I didn't
Yes,
expect that.
I was like, exactly. I want more of this.
It's
Exactly.
unbecoming of a Turk to
So,
die. I was like, oh, hell yeah. That's right. So, yeah.
this is badass.
Well, listen, I was just thinking with the Lucrezia stuff. It's like, you know, it's gotta play into what I was saying earlier, man. A mirror image of the Jenova Sephiroth, like twisted, you know, loneliness and everything is Lucrezia. And OG, we just played it, me and Aaliyah. You go to see her in the cave with Vincent. She doesn't even know. Like, she thinks Sephiroth is dead. And she's like,
Yes, he has to lie to her.
yeah, exactly. And he's like, yes, he's dead. He pulls the Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, you know? And it's like, wow. I would really love to see that played up. I would really love to see Lucrezia kind of painted as this tragic character who was vastly deceived. And I think that's the one thing that needs to change for her character is like, she needs to be completely, deceived by Hojo for any of it to make sense. And also to make Vincent like kind of more of a tragic character, almost that she thought she was almost like, doing a charity or kind of like giving herself up for science for the progression of mankind. It has to be this like really deeply clear thing that's happening. Otherwise, she's just viewed as like a piece of garbage. So like, I think that'd be cool.
Lucrezia has a like specific sort of. I think that they could probably, depending on, because they handled Dine pretty well. I think they could have definitely gone harder. I think with Dine, sort of his depiction. Not to say that they. I think I was left satisfied. I definitely was like, they could have, but I feel like they did what they needed to with the character. Lucrezia also has like her own set of issues mentally. Like she has I can't remember what the complex is, but she blames herself for everything, and she is perpetually engulfed in guilt, which is also very much like the other characters that we've seen in the story, that they put the blame on top of themselves. So Lucrezia is punishing herself for, Dirge of Cerberus lore, the death of Vincent's father, because she was inadvertently involved in his death and takes responsibility for that incident happening. And she doesn't tell Vincent that she knew his father that way, which was an incredibly like complex thing for her. So she felt like what happened to Vincent was sort of a repeated incident with his father. And there's that issue that and then also just, I think, the using herself as essentially a science experiment is also her self-inflicted punishment. Which is also very interesting for like the way that Sephiroth ends up turning out, which is that he's sort of like the I don't know, like I don't want to say Jesus, but like this really fucked up version of like the chosen one, to have like her mother in that mentality sort of. And so she's like always saying I'm sorry. She punishes herself. I think that would, and that's also what makes that scene in the OG very interesting in retrospect is that she's looking to be like for atonement, essentially, by asking Vincent this question, and he gives her that
when she lied to him before, sort of right? How poetic is that? Woo.
It all works out in a really horrible way. But the thing is that there's also just a whole other aspect of that whole area with Lucrezia that's also super interesting is that that's where chaos is born from. So that pool that Lucrezia is in, and that's also where you get the limit break in the original game, so that's fitting. But there's also Nero and stuff is in the game. That's also just going to add a whole level of complexity to this whole relationship. But the idea is that Lucrezia is like non-dying because of the experiments that happened to her. Like she has Jenova cells in her. So
now we know why from Rebirth. She can't die.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, right. Exactly. So it's just there's an endless amount of ways to take that, and you can even make her into a boss fight if you really wanted that to happen. I think like I feel like that would also just make her an infinitely more interesting character. Just like, I don't know. There's a ton that you could do with the direction of her portrayal, but I think it all has to kind of play into making Vincent more interesting as a character.
Oh, which they already have.
And he's got a lot. Yeah, he's already got a lot going on. So I mean, think
dude, just whatever the scene they do with Lucrezia where you meet him, fight him, and he like staggers back into the thing. It's like, this is heartbreaking, man. This is sad. Do you really want your story to end here? And then he ends up like that scene is better than anything and everything combined of Vincent. And honestly, like most of the compilation put together is so awesome. Like really, really heartbreaking stuff. Like, what's this guy's story? It really makes you wonder about him, you know?
What about you? Like, is there something in particular that you want to see sort of portrayed, like in that?
Well, so a couple
relationship or that character.
For sure, the Lucrezia thing, I would love to see that like explored in a meaningful way that shows enough of the flashbacks. Like they already show it in the OG a little bit, like just Vincent walk in and get shot by Hojo and whatever. So like, I think that would be cool. And he's like, yeah, I didn't stop it. Maybe I could have stopped it. He beaten himself up. So I'd like to see that very well depicted, just like the Ever Crisis stuff. Right, like have it well depicted, not just like go read the other thing or like Final Fantasy 15. So that would be really cool. But I would love to see a spin on the Sephiroth. And then my thought is this: wouldn't it be interesting if Sephiroth ever interacted with Lucrezia? Because now we have the picture that he has of her. Imagine if he figured it out, and then again in this sort of twisted, discarding his humanity type way. Somehow maybe he goes to see her. Like he would know of her if he was in the live stream. He kind of knows everything. Could go to see her in the cave.
Would that be something to include in the Nibelheim theory that we made?
Yeah.
Would that be a moment that you would want Sephiroth maybe to see from that perspective of like maybe his mother's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it could just be a whole other layer for him of like, my whole life is a lie. I am completely alone. Even the mother that I thought I had, Jenova, was not even her. It's this woman who I have no connection to and doesn't even know about me. It's just like layers of tragedy. And I could also see him going to see Lucrezia. I could also see him, like, I would say killing Lucrezia, Sephiroth, for the sort of horrible thing that she did to him. Like, she ruined his life by, getting experiments done on him as a fetus and everything, right? Like, it's horrifying what she did. So I would love to see Sephiroth go and be like, time to punish you because you're not even my real mother. Like, she's over there. That could be really cool. But I would also love to see that scene where Vincent lies and says, like, nah, he's dead. Conversely, and let me know if that spurred anything on theories for you. Conversely, I would love to see Deep Ground. Deep Ground, guys. I said this, I think, on Baby Seal or Aaliyah Talk. Since Deep Ground is now established as like a standing force that can be called upon by Scarlet, which makes sense to what they are, I want to see them fight in the war against Wutai, man. That's where you do it. You can have Vincent versus those guys. We're going to have Wutai landing in a freaking, beaches strike coming up to fight on Midgar. We're going to have Diamond Weapon coming up. Let's have Deep Ground coming out to meet him. Full Shinra Air Army and everything. Could be like the most epic battle, and we have like a couple of boss fights maybe with Deep Ground near at least Nero and Vice, since they've already been established. But you could easily have Rosso, Azul, and you can have all those guys as well. I think it'd be really fun. Again, just to kind of have them, and that doesn't even affect Dirge of Cerberus, really. Like, there's probably a couple lines where it's like, we were hid underground forever, that wouldn't make as much sense. But it could be pretty cool and still play into the compilation quite well.
I feel like it would just be in completely in the benefit of Rebirth, the final game, part 3, to just splurge any Dirge of Cerberus, anything that they want to do, because unless they fucking remake that game entirely, I don't know how well it would do with like a re-release or anything. I think, quite honestly, it would just be in their best interest to utilize their characters to the best of their ability, have it be on the attack on Midgar, like the coming back to Midgar, and have all of the Deep Ground stuff that was so epic in the cutscene that we saw in Dirge of Cerberus. Just
the ending
sort of play out.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. So I'm in complete agreement.
Yeah.
In the sense that I don't think that ultimately, even if Advent Children happens, which I don't think will ultimately happen, but meaning in like the timeline that we're sort of going to be keeping track, that Dirge of Cerberus will ever actually happen. I think that they're just going to pull the plug on that and just feed it right back in. So Vice, Nero, Azul the Cerulean would be a fucking awesome fight, I think, because of like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, dude,
the gun,
utilize all these cool characters.
Throw them all fucking in there, dude.
Yeah, utilize all these cool characters. Have them like die for all I care. Have Yuffie get revenge and kill Nero. I think that'd be awesome. Like, do that as opposed to like, oh, we're gonna be a slave to the compilation and the other stuff. We like kind of, I don't want to say sloppily, but like, without seeing the full scope of everything, did with Dirge of Cerberus. Like, let's do it. Same thing with Genesis, man. Let's get the Genesis stuff going. Let's get the sign
Bring
up.
him in.
What is his final thing that he has to do? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I think is would be awesome. The sort of complete vision of all the compilation in this revision of the story. Like, it's a revision of everything. It's a compilation too. not just OG.
And
They're gonna be
also,
really strong.
the other thing too is at the end of Before Crisis, during Meteor Fall, we see all of the Turks like show up to help evacuate everybody, which is also in On the Way to a Smile. So that is like one of a lot of the Before Crisis tissue does like immediately match up with Advent Children, and like Nojima has already kind of done the work there too. So this is all lining up in some fucking crazy ass way where Nojima somehow figured out how to like make all of this make sense.
Dude, it's incredible.
And it's just gonna be about how much of a budget
man,
does the game have.
It's actually incredible.
That's gonna be a whole other conversation.
I can't believe how well it's all lining up. That's another reason I'm so impressed is like to see that visual language lineup that we talked about, to see all this other stuff kind of make sense on such a thematic but also just like kind of mechanical level. I'm like, oh, they really did it. You know, those like 10 years they took, you know, essentially between like Advent Children and figuring everything else out, like really paid off. And this is it, man. FF7 I think really is gonna be finally just done, a complete perfect work, and it's so excited, being that it's one of the best games ever right now. I think Rebirth is absolutely no question on that. So we're almost at 3 hours. How you feeling? Want to take a couple questions then we end?
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me.
Before we do though,
everyone wants to.
Before we take the couple questions and work towards it, is there anything else you wanted to ask me? Anything else you wanted to say on the show that you didn't get a chance to, or otherwise want to get out?
You can go back and watch it. While you stepped away, I was kind of just like talking to the chat, just being like, and I think we've already sort of touched on it several times, but I always just love the hell out of being on the show with you or on stream with you, just because I think that just the openness to kind of just go with what is going on, and I think just the connectivity of like all the thematic stuff that we can kind of riff on. I had a blast. I haven't talked to anybody really formally since, again, the game has been out, and this has been a very like invigorating discussion to kind of like take and run with and see where things go. I'm in the middle of writing a video right now, and I'm kind of like, it's not like by the numbers, but it's like kind of doing my sleep easy thing. It's not gonna be Stinky Duck.
Whoa!
How dare you, Stinky Duck?
Stinky Duck. Thank you so much for the 10 gifted subs. Thank you so much.
Stinky Duck.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah.
Oh my God, 10 gifted subs. Thank you so much, Stinky Duck, for honoring our guest, for the support in this show. Really appreciate it. That's incredible. And I'm just so happy you guys seem to be enjoying the talk too, because, oh man, I agree with everything you just said. Sleep easy. It's so nice to talk to you. We always have a synergy, you know? We always kind of inspire each other. And it's just, it's so good to talk to you again. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll continue to, through the end of this whole project and beyond. But it's so much good conversation. And I hope you guys have enjoyed and, enjoy our talks, run with them, tag us if you're talking about them and like what we said. We really,
absolutely.
Yeah, we really are happy that we could share them. But yeah, thank you, man. It's always good to have you on the show. Absolutely. So yeah, why don't we take like a couple questions from chat and then we'll wrap up. I see one here from, let's see. I see one here from Kawhi. Yeah, what's this all about? You wanna take that one?
Sure. Philip, sleep easy. In the OG final fight confrontation with everyone floating in front of Sephiroth and Holy, Cloud says Aerith's memories. You're talking about something that I have discussed in length already. I'm very excited to talk about this. Aerith's memories are memories. We came to tell you our memories. Come planet, show us your answer. And Sephiroth to settling everything. To settling of everything. What do we think these lines now, with the context of Rebirth and the empty materia with Aerith, with these memories being stored inside the empty materia for a mechanical use to end things once and for all? Do you want to start? Because I have gone over this several times on my own stream. I want to hear your thoughts first.
Perfect. Well, yeah, let me speak on it first. I think I love that line. I just had a revelation looking back on it where I'm like, yeah, what's happening here is the reason the planet responds and releases the life stream to like save humans, save the planet in general, I guess more save humans, is because it was asking, like, there's a scene where Cloud and the guys are kind of like, are humans good? Like, we should probably go away. We're destroying the planet. And then the planet is like sending Diamond Weapon to destroy Midgar, like the source of all the, the pain of the planet and everything. Is humans are bad for the planet. But then they say, like, listen to our thoughts, listen to our wishes, listen to our memories. He's like speaking to the planet, essentially, like the consciousness of it. And then he's saying, yeah, like, what's your answer? Like, this is it. And then show us your answer. And then, yeah, the planet answers, I think, with Aerith enacting it, releases the life stream and saves them. Because Holy is too late. Holy causes more damage. I think Holy is meant to be like a shield that's like really high above the planet, like surrounding it. And it's just too late. It's like causing damage. Meteor's like 100 feet off the ground. So this is the planet, taking action. As far as the empty materia with the mechanical, the storing memories, I love it. It sounds great. I think the empty materia is going to represent a lot of things. I think at the end, it obviously represents that Cloud is in two different worlds at once. When he turns it, we see the reflection of a sky. We turn it again, we see two skies, right? With Cloud in the middle, his head in the middle. So it's like he's already experiencing two different places. He's no longer just in a kind of classic consciousness that he had before. And my thought with the empty materia, was just that. Like, it's representing him. I didn't think about the filling it with memories, though, for the planet. That's a really fun idea, because that is kind of what saves them at the end, is their thoughts and their memories and everything. So I don't know if that's what you got from that, Sleepy's. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, the thing that was very interesting to me as a concept was the fact that the Omni Aerith concept worked very well with the missing Holy Materia. Is that when Holy is not present, Aerith seems to not know as much. But when she does know everything, she has a materia that is full of Holy. So, and then that kind of passing around of knowledge I thought was very interesting. And we know that Holy and just materias in general are made out of the knowledge of, the planet. And it feels like this is very central to how Aerith's depiction is. So, and I've said this in the past, is like the equivalent of the themes of the story are blatant. That Sephiroth is Meteor and Aerith is Holy. So that is directly feeds into that conversation. But then I thought it was perfect, because what it almost feels like that ending sets up in the original game is that if you're looking at it from the perspective that Holy is Aerith, Sephiroth trapping Aerith in the life stream feels like a very interesting way to take the concept of, like, we have to, so, and the way that I thought it would rope back in with the original, or sorry, the part one of the trilogy with Remake, is the final part of the game for that is Operation Save Aerith.
Yep.
So this is them at the end of part 3. That's sort of how I feel like things are going to go, is that they're not going to save Aerith in the sense of, like, she's going to be alive again. It's more like freeing her from, like, sort of the shackles of, like, what Sephiroth might be doing, like puppeteering her or, using her for a means to an end or something like that.
Totally. Like
But
I said, when he goes to the
that,
church, he kills her true self, man, in the church. That's dangerous business.
Yes.
That's why she actually dies, I think, in the game, even though Cloud deflects it. Yeah. Really good.
Yes. I do think that it would just be best to, like, avoid being blatant about Aerith's survival towards the end, but
Oh, I see what you're saying.
that's sort of where my mind goes. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. We have a next one. What do you think's happening with Zack in the live stream? Is he dead and stuff? I'm going to answer this one rapid fire. I mentioned it's like Xanarkin, man. I think it's Final Fantasy X. Same writer, Nojima. Zack, very similar to Titus. Very similar personality type. I feel like Zack is representing a kind of Titus type figure. Is Titus from a multiverse? No. He's from a dream world. It's a different mechanic. And Xanarkin is a fleeting dream that eventually goes away. And Titus fades away too. Did he live, though? Yeah, he had a life. He interacted with Yuna. He had a real life. Again, that's what's going to happen with Zack. I do think he will be reuniting with Cloud again once Cloud knows the whole story of how Zack died, perhaps. And it'll be this really fleeting thing where then, like Titus, he goes away. And he eventually kind of dissipates in a really tragic way. I think that would be a super smart way to do it. But of course, have some like meaningful scenes with Zack, and also his character development, because they've already developed Zack a lot and how he's like kind of dealt with his nonstop failure in Rebirth, which I thought was super cool, and that's exactly what I asked for before it came out. Like, yeah, I want to see Zack go through some really tough stuff, you know.
I definitely think that this next part is gonna have to, just in the same way that we were talking about Sephiroth, they're really gonna have to do a lot to sort of let Zack be humanized to a point where we really are on board. Because I still feel like Zack is, I still feel like I'm fucking watching Crisis Core,
Yeah.
which is great for me. But I can imagine for other people like that not being enough, and I think it doesn't, because very quickly our characters becoming so well fleshed out and like very well explored to a point where it's I want to feel that with this character. And I do know that by part 3, like, I need to feel that about Zack, otherwise I might, even the fucking Crisis Core lover might not be like as on board with the way of his depiction. I do think that what they're using Zack for is that Aerith is using him as a way of sort of reviving. So where Sephiroth is sort of the negative force and is like wanting the death of worlds to sort of feed into his own world to give him power over like which world lives and dies, Zack goes to a dying world and revives it. It by being positive. He is affecting change by his presence alone, which is also what the gift of the goddess is explained to be in Crisis Core, is that Genesis is looking for the gift of the goddess. He thinks it's the life stream, and then finds out that it's actually Zack, through his own sort of morality, his like sense of morals, is what ultimately saves Genesis, which he equates to the gift of the goddess, which is why at the beginning of the game they're saying stamp plus Benora white apple equals Zack, is that Zack is that gift, and him arriving to Midgar is him saving that world. I think he's going to continue to be utilized in that way, but I also think that just like Sephiroth and Aerith is that in some weird way, this is going to plug back into this being a part of Cloud to some degree, and his psyche and his sort of like the power that is inside of Cloud that Zack is also somehow a part of, just by osmosis of them being connected, which is, I think, Cloud's power and the power that he's giving everybody else, the power that Sephiroth seeks. So that's sort of what I'm thinking.
Love it.
In like the spitball version of that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. It's great. And I agree that, she's using Zack because the White Whispers at the end are literally saving Zack and like directing him around and stuff. So yeah, she's definitely trying to, once she gets back to White Materia and the church and everything, she's got her powers back. I think it happens at the Loveless play. At the end, the live stream like kind of comes out of her and she has this kind of epiphany moment, sees dead people and stuff. It's really cool. Stinky Duck said, do you think we'll get Tifa as the protagonist, or maybe Zack, like Tifa in the OG, or Zack when Cloud is out of commission? I would love to see both, personally. I don't know if I would love to see Zack as a protagonist. There is a section where we lose our main character, so you could have Zack stand in with the Buster Sword, but then like to what end? And then at that point he's fully integrated into the story and is just with the party. Unless Cloud in the live stream sequence sees how Zack died and everything, I think it's not really going to work. So it's definitely possible. It could be pretty cool, but at the same time, I love the fact that Cloud is out and you're like, oh my goodness, my main character with the sword is gone. We got Sid and Tifa leading. I think it'd be really, really epic if it was like the OG. But yeah, that could absolutely happen. Stinky Duck. And it's just all about how they execute it, which I'm sure if they do, it would like play into the plan pretty well. So there's that. Knights of the Round, says Yola Alchemist. What do we think of Knights of the Round? I would love to see him as a story aspect, because think about it, Alchemist, all the other summons have a full backstory. You know they're getting one. It's got to be related to the ancients in Jenova, right? The ones who sealed her away, the ones who put her to sleep. It's got to be, right? I would love to see that brought to life.
I gotta step away for just a second. I know we're wrapping up already, but let me
of course.
really quickly.
I'll keep answering questions. Okay, Useless Hoarding. Chapter 5, Rebirth, and the monsters merge with the robes. You can access the monsters and fuse Jenova cells. Do you think we may see monsters become a part of the reunion? And if so, do you think it'd be... That's a really good point, Hoarding. I had not thought about that. That's a really cool idea, because some monsters have Jenova cells. Love to see it. I think we're going to get... Roche has a big piece of Jenova, like grafted onto him by Hojo, like much more than the soldiers get. So I think Roche is most likely going to become a big monster in a really tragic way, and it could play into that.
Definitely going to turn into like a really cool boss fight.
Yeah, I think so too. That's going to be great, which is great because we get more Austin Lee Matthews. What do you think about the teal orb Sephiroth drops in OG when he says the new setting of Materia to reinterpret that scene? Zahn asks Sleep Easy. Also, I posted a thread on Reddit. Holy trapped inside Jenova's chest. Really looking forward to your take on this. What do you think, Sleep Easy?
What do you think about the teal orb inside of drops in OG? Setting up Materia to reinterpret this scene. You mean that the scene where Sephiroth in the Northern Crater? Is that the scene we're talking about?
I think that's what they mean. Yeah.
I think that there's definitely going to be some interesting aspect of that just as a concept of like Sephiroth like immersed. I think that also is sort of a little bit of the common connotation is that he's sort of like central to, he's attached to the live stream via Materia / the surrounding sort of structure. I definitely think that you're gonna like, that would be also a good place, like you're saying. I think you already mentioned this. That would also be a good place to sort of see Sephiroth sort of coming to, like, piecing things together.
Yes.
Coming to the realization of things just because of the scenario that is, and definitely a part of the game where we get like a huge info dump already, and stakes are super high, and knowing that we're about to lose Cloud at the same time would be a really interesting place to start doing that. I will definitely, the Jenova's chest thing I'm not sure about because I'm curious to see what you mean though. I'll definitely look at the thread on Reddit after he kills Aerith in the altar.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff. Like I said, the ending of the game is so vague. If you were to treat it in any sort of like realistic graphical sense and storytelling sense that like has actual scenes and not just like, you know, kind of PS1 style. Like for example, they go to the center of the Earth essentially. Sephiroth's down there. He's got Holy trapped, so it can't function. It's like locked in this rock formation, or you could say Jenova, whatever you want to say. And then the party's floating there, and Sephiroth is so unbelievably powerful. Like they can't even do anything. He's just like, feels like their body's gonna rip apart. He's just standing there. He's so full power, enacting his will. And then there's this moment where Cloud kind of like rallies, and everybody rallies and has these good speeches, and they're like, together maybe we can get him. Planet, listen to us. We're gonna try and fight him. And then he's Bizarre Sephiroth, or his true form. So I think there's a lot of stuff that happens there that has to kind of like, again, what is Sephiroth thinking? He doesn't say anything, right? So there's got to be some characterization there that I feel like maybe he'll explain what he's doing with Holy. For example, maybe my Jenova complete idea will play into this in some way. So I think just the idea that there will be scenes that play out that have a lot of dialogue and characterization, and if they characterize Sephiroth at all and don't just have him be like silent throughout the whole ending of the game, I think you'll get a lot of your theories in that. It's very exciting. What do you think the cat eyes are supposed to mean? I think they're supposed to be snake eyes, but I think they're supposed to mean just
I
other.
think he's referencing. So I think Useless Hoarding is referencing at the beginning. So this at the beginning of Remake, there's several posters that say like, and there's an advertisement like along with the Benora White Apple juice and the stamp posters. There's a poster for a camera for cat eyes.
Oh, really?
For a camera with cat eyes, and it says see through her eyes.
I get it.
And I'm thinking that that's the correlation that they're making.
No, that makes sense. That's really cool.
But
I hadn't thought about that. I think it's just meant to see that he's other. Sephiroth is not a normal person. It's just a cool visual depiction of that. Also a really nice character design point. And then you realize, oh, he's got part Jenova inside him. I think that's supposed to mean, as far as the significance of what it was originally meant to mean, I don't think they'll go further than that, though, personally. I think it's just a great design aspect that shows him, you know, kind of tweaking out. Also, it's a good thing when you see Cloud in Advent Children, I believe, start to tweak out. He gets the cat eyes or snake eyes at that point as well. So that's pretty cool. But I think it's just it's sort of a more visual language, man, to identify that's the Jenova, that's the sort of Sephiroth person in a really cool way.
they're definitely doing some interesting stuff with the eye sort of imagery and Rebirth with the city of Garda, the Loveless play setting,
Mm.
is that you have that big clock that's supposed to represent an eye. You have the eye of can't remember what it's called, but Rosen in Ever Crisis is the eye of
Yeah.
Rodarian or something,
This gentleman.
which is like sort of, yes, the handsome young lad.
Yes.
He looks good, dude. He looks good in CG.
He is so cool, man. Yeah. Imagine that. Not more Lego people after 25 years. So nice to see.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that there's probably a bigger picture thing happening, especially
Mhm.
with Sephiroth also sort of incentivizing Cloud to sort of look at things his way. I think that
Yes.
also feeds into my goddess idea a little bit, so
Yeah.
I'm willing to take that.
I love it, man. I love the goddess idea. Um, this is supposed to mean, and then do you think we'll get Advent Children outfits? I would love to see it. Um, I don't know if they'll do it. I would personally love to see it. And a lot of people are like, oh, fusion sword and stuff. I think it'd be sweet to have the fusion sword as a really like end game side quest where you can do it. You get the fusion
You'll see.
sword. But at the same time, I feel like they might not do it. What are your thoughts, Libby?
I think that they're not gonna go full into that. I think that I genuinely, and I think this is sort of semi misinterpreted in the last podcast I did, but I think what they should probably do one of the very first things that they should do in the third part is do something that will 100% signal to us that Advent Children is not the outcome of the end of this story.
How do they do that?
I
Out
do
of curiosity.
think
How do they do it?
I have no fucking clue how they would do that.
How do you say like, anyways, this future that you haven't seen yet, Cloud, doesn't happen? Like, yeah. How do we express that? Honestly, because I'm like, how do they do that?
I'm thinking that you would have to. Well, I think that yours and my mindset would go right to what is a plot point that happens, or a character that exists in Advent Children that would not exist, or have to either die, or something different would have to happen in order for.
Yeah, it has to be drastic. It has
this
to be an
to-
extreme change.
So I feel like it would have to be a character death. Another character death. Maybe
Interesting.
not even like it could even be a Turk. Like
That's a good
killing
point.
off of a Turk would be a really good way of being like, oh, that is different, and also that's not fucking happening.
Yeah.
Or like things are drastically going in a different direction.
Oh yeah, no, it
From
could be
that
totally
ending.
different, which I'm not sure I would like. If it's just like, anyways, we're gonna fight Sephiroth in a totally different place. Yeah, it's like not even the same story.
I definitely think that there's merit to be just even based in this conversation that Advent Children doesn't seem like an unlikely sort of scenario of the outcome of this world, but I do feel like this world that we're viewing now will have a different ending than what we are expecting, to some degree. I'm not sure
Awesome.
to what extent. I think what was it? I think DLC costumes though is just the way to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Give me
as
a
long as
fusion
it's
sword.
fun.
Give me the outfit regardless. I don't fucking care if it's Advent Children or not. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah, exactly. And I think
need
they
a
should just have them
more
in there
reason
for
to
fun.
dress up, dude.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they should just do it
Yeah,
for fun.
exactly.
It could even be like after you beat it, you get it as a bonus. So yeah, so it's not like trying to make sense. When do they get the outfits in the timeline? Like, don't think about it like that. Like I said, just it's supposed to be a fun thing. But I think, like I said, I really like the idea too that Advent Children could happen, and it's kind of like a Garland FF1 thing, where you see the moment where it could be that Sephiroth like came from I'll Never Be a Memory, and then appears there, and you're like, oh my god, it's not a sequel. It's a, like I said, I've never thought it was a sequel. I thought it was a retelling that makes the OG make more sense in Advent Children, like we've been saying. But how cool would it be if Advent Children is actually come after this, but also this is the conclusion to Advent Children? I think that could be really fun. But I don't think it's again, if they do anything like that, I don't think it's at all going to be explicit. Like, I don't think you're going to see him talking to Cloud in Advent Children and then come back. I think it'll just be like a visual language thing. So people like us, psychopaths like us, can be like, oh, that's where it happened. That's where it happened. I swear, you know? Which I think is probably the wise thing to do anyway. But yeah.
I do think that that is the way to go. just flat out. I completely agree.
Yeah. I think that's it for questions, guys. Really, really good ones. Thank you, everybody. Now, Sleep Easy, final thoughts. Man, I would love to hear them. What do you think?
Oh, God. The game will be awesome.
Yes.
I am very much interested. I hope that they do something with synergy that we talked about already in our last conversation, which they kind of did with the Limit Break. I saw that. I was thinking about you. I was like, oh, that shit that's kind of in the alleyway of that synergy.
They kind of did it, didn't they? Our idea went, that was hard. Yep, that went hard. I forgot about that.
The synergy thing would be really cool to see. I think that there's just a ton of part 3 stuff, but I'm gonna keep myself in the same place that I did for Rebirth. Is that I think expecting more than Rebirth is insane. And I'm not gonna fool and delude myself into thinking that there's gonna be something bigger than that fucking thing.
I'm telling you, it's much bigger.
I can't even, dude. I can't allow myself because I couldn't even believe the fact that they gave me I felt like this game was talking to me at a certain point. I was like, "There's no fucking way that this is happening. Yeah. This doesn't feel real." I'm gonna keep it that way. I'm gonna keep that magic. But I just am really excited to see what punches they pull. Yep. And I hope that it's exciting and interesting and engaging. And that's all I can hope for.
I agree, man. I can't wait to see. And honestly, man, we came up with some fire ideas tonight. Honestly.
I know, dude. We fucking cooked, dude. I don't know how it happened, but it just happens.
We really did cook. It's incredible. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I love just having friends like you because it's just so fun to get in here and brainstorm with someone who really appreciates the art and kind of the message and the theme behind it and, likes to explore it like I do and just talk about it. So it's just, so happens that this game is particularly theory heavy, and like I said, I've never seen something with this level of information in every shot and visual language that allows us to have these conversations. So yeah, we're just having a field day. But my final thoughts are I really am excited about my Sephiroth thoughts and both of our Sephiroth thoughts now, because after the Ever Crisis stuff, I'm like, oh my god, okay, my theory is actually not that ridiculous at all. So I'm quite excited.
It's kind of on the head a little bit.
Yeah, I would love to see them explore that in some way, even if it's just him kind of explaining or justifying what he's doing. But for me, it's the Sephiroth characterization, man. He's one of my favorite characters ever. I think he's one of the best villains ever written. He's so compelling, and they're finally, I think everybody views him like that for amorphous, undefined reasons why he's one of the best villains ever, or the best villain in gaming. You just imagine cool stuff about him. He looks really cool, and he's got a cool theme song. The rest is just imagination. I think they're finally showing why he actually is the best villain and explaining it and in really cool ways. So I want to see the character there too. I want to see an arc for him that isn't just I'm lofty, I know everything now, join me gladly. I really want to see some emotion with him. Aaliyah too had some really cool thoughts on Sephiroth's death in OG when you beat him. There's this cool scene in Edge of Creation. He's there. He kind of glitches out, and then there's it just fades to black, and then there's the blood. Obviously, a product of the PS1 animation and everything, but that could be really cool. The look on his face is pure horror and shock. Sephiroth when he gets killed, he doesn't do that in Advent Children.
He's taken completely off guard.
He does not do that. He gets his ass beat down in Advent Children by 20 different swords, and he's still just I will never be a memory. He doesn't even flinch. He looks like he dies in the original. So I think my theory actually kind of makes sense that the original's after. That is the final moment.
That's the heart of it's the Omni Aerith, we see her die there. It's we're
the full death, man.
Die there.
That is the end of Sephiroth.
Everything is just aftermath.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And the Edge of Creation is that way to get to the final one. It's not when you defeat him in the main and the creation. So anyway, I want the characterization. I want the finality. But I still want it to be, like I said, more FF7 than FF7, which I think it absolutely is. So anyways, I had so much fun talking to you, man. Let's shout your stuff out.
Same.
Sleep easy on everything, right?
Yeah. Sleep easy on everything. Sleep easy on YouTube. Sleep easy on Twitch. Sleep easy Dream Stream on Twitch. Sleep easy Dream Stream on YouTube now. You can go see the playthrough of Rebirth there.
Yes.
And then that's it. And then more videos coming soon. eventually, because it takes forever for me to do anything, but that will happen. A blast, Phil. It's always a blast. I
Dude.
love just the creative energy. It's like right or wrong. It's like it's messy, but we're willing to just kind of jump in, and I love you for it. So I think that's the feeling I get. That's what I'm leaving here with. Just figuring it out.
Yes.
One step at a time.
Oh no, guys, he's degrading into the live stream. Look at his background. No. He's degrading. No, Sleep Easy. It's his true self. Omni, Sleep Easy. Find out what happens next in the next Sleep Easy video being written right now. Go sub to him.
Oh no.
Anyways, we love you, man. Thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna send the kids over on a raid as we get out of here. But dude, it's so nice to talk to you. I'll stick around if you want to for a moment when I end stream here.
Yeah.
But
sure.
yeah, let me send you guys on a raid. Let's see who's on. Aaliyah, you got any suggestions? We got. Let's see.
Thank you everybody for watching. I
yeah,
had a blast.
Dude. And yeah, and if you're watching the YouTube recording too, like subscribe to Sleep Easy's channel. I'll have a link in the description. Also, subscribe here on my channel if you want to discuss the cinematics of games. We're currently breaking down all kinds of fun stuff. And if you want to choose a game cinematic for me to break down, click that join button. Become a Dragoon member. Yeah.
Ooh.
Very, very fun. We've been having fun with the viewer choice.
To it.
Yes, very
Hard.
good. Let's see. Who do you think, Aaliyah? Any suggestions? I see Cyrus playing Hades, BGG, Professor Noctis doing Lies of P. That's a fun. It's a fun combination. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a pretty good, solid choice.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna send you guys over to Professor Noctis. You guys know him. He's a theorizer. He's a theorist. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Type in Philosopher's Raid, copy it. We are going to raid Prof Noctis, my friends. Have a lovely evening, and thank you so much for being here, my friends. We will be talking again. I want to have some more people on the show. I'll let you know who soon, because man, these have been some great talks, and what better time to do it. But all right, we're gonna raid Professor